makes me feel like a man.
You want every team to lose any other game? Sorry. Bailey Zappi just did another time. You know what? Whoa, time out. Are you kidding? That's what I'm gonna try to drop a mic.
Welcome to the Warner Brothas Podcast. I am Kyle, joined by my brother Keenan. Keenan, how you doing?
Good. We're back to the duo, just back at it. Regular Warner Brothas, how we started 4 years ago. You know, our 4-year anniversary for this is coming up very soon. It's actually next week. It's March 12th
honestly,
was our first episode. Like, our first episode back. But it's been like 5 years.
I was going to say, we're getting closer to the 5-year anniversary. And it had to have been March, right? It had to have been March because playoffs start in April, like mid-April.
It was April 12th.
We started near the end of the season.
Yeah, so the for the first ever one that we have ever dropped was in April. That was on April, I believe, 12th. I'm going to go check right now, but I believe it was April 12th. I swear it was
earlier.
April 10th. Our 2020 came out April 10th, 2019. So we're almost almost about 2 months away from being 5 years on the first one ever. For our rebrand, I'm calling it, back up, that was the March 12th that came out, and that was the episode that obviously was the day that we all figured out that, oh, hey, no more basketball. The season's
that Rudy Gobert started COVID.
Yeah,
I swear there was like an episode or two
playing the piano with microphones.
2020. I swear I just have recollection of like, because we recorded like the playoffs usually start.
We
around
recorded
like April 19th.
So we, I think, recorded one prior to that, like a week or two prior to that didn't come out, and it was a Kobe Wade discussion. But 2020 was the first one we ever released. But I think that we recorded one prior to that because we were trying to just get our bearings of seeing like, okay, how does this feel? How are we going to do this pretty much kind of thing. So I think that might be what you're thinking of. So like the first one we recorded might have been a few weeks earlier than that than April 12th, 10th when it came out.
I'm just in my brain. I just remember talking about like stuff that happened during that season, like with Kyrie and stuff. And it just seems like we did, because the day you're saying April 10th, I'm not doubting it necessarily, but I know the playoffs start like a week after that. And I feel like we talked about a few happenings in the regular season before the playoffs. I felt like we didn't get right into playoffs. Like I remember complaining about Kyrie. I remember doing the Lakers and Magic thing, Magic Johnson. That was obviously the last day of the regular season. So that must have been the episode after 2020. But yep. I feel like there was a few things I complained about that were regular season related. But hey, maybe I got them in during that time. But
because we had predictions one, then predictions two right afterward, and then you had Dame or Russ, and that one had Steven. Shout out to Steve. We had shout out to Steve. But yeah, no, it's been a while, and this is coming. I'm excited. I'm glad 4 years doesn't even feel it like it does, because it feels like this has been a part of me forever. But then it also doesn't feel like it's been 4 to 5 years almost that we started this 5 years ago. It's crazy.
I agree with that. It does and it does not feel like it's been 5 years. It does in the sense that like so much has happened in the NBA, if we're just taking it by NBA terms. But then again, all that stuff feels like yesterday to some degree. All the things that happened. Nipsey passed. That was in reference to that 2020 episode. Yeah. That that feels like yesterday, but it feels like forever ago. I mean, Westbrook was still in the Thunder then. That's when he got the 2020,
Durant
right?
was a warrior.
So he went since. Yeah. So, yeah, that's right. So Kyrie was a Celtic. So much has happened in that short amount of time.
Yeah. Rest in peace to Hondo. Did the Raptors choke away a championship was the name of one of those? Are the Lakers the favorites for 2020 because they got AD? AD wasn't even a Laker yet. They got him that offseason when we started in 2019. That's crazy.
It featured, and we've mentioned this a couple times in passing with Brandon, but it featured Brandon saying, Zion might be a bust, which still perplexes me because he's technically right. Like, Zion's a star. Zion's a great player, an all-star player.
That came
but
out.
He's not what we all thought he was going to be.
That came out June 20th, 2019. I might clip something up from it. I might have to do such a thing soon and just bring that to light. But I may wait for the playoffs, because if he flames out in this year's playoffs, I'm absolutely dropping that for Brandon, because that might have been, he called that 5 years ago. Might be great, man. But yeah,
right.
You're right. To this point, he has the chance to obviously turn it around, but to this point, he has not lived up to what he was supposed to be. He hasn't even been Ja.
It's everything Ja is right now. That's what Zion was supposed to be. Obviously, take away the injury this year, but
and the
Ja dropping plays, you're right. The leading your team to the playoffs maybe a year earlier, having a real playoff performance in Ja's case. Yeah, he's everything Zion was supposed to be. So again, that's not to say Zion's not going to have a great career, but when you're that type of talent and you have those type of expectations like Zion did.
It wasn't exactly Wemby, but it was a step below. It was a step below Wemby.
Yeah, it's the most American players had probably
since
LeBron, but probably since AD. AD had some expectations. His was more like, okay, we know this guy's gonna change a franchise. Like, we knew that much. Zion had real hype from high school. Early on in high school, really off Instagram, like really because of Instagram more than anything, and how freakishly athletic he was. But lived up to those expectations at Duke, and those expectations, you're supposed to get an early start, like you said, like a Wemby, like a Luka, where they're just doing freakish stuff off the bat. Zion, and you don't even enough, like,
and you don't even need to have like the crazy amount of winning success early, like the first couple years. Wemby, we already like the world's Wemby's already, and it's just because they've won like 11 or 12 games this year. They haven't won really anything, but you just see it's like, okay, that's 20, that's 10, that's 3 blocks in like less than 30 minutes. All right, that's a 3-point shot. That's that's the off the glass dunk. That's the behind the back in transition, the pull up threes, like everything about his game's like, okay. This is special. Well, he's 7'4".
I'm glad you brought up Wemby, because he's really where I wanted to start, and I'll kind of do the comparison with Zion, with Luka, and with Ja. I kind of just said about Ja, like they made the playoffs probably a year earlier. They were in the play-in, I believe, his rookie year. The next year they're in the playoffs, right? Luka, same thing. I think they were either outside the playoffs his rookie year, and then he's in the playoffs, and then he's in an all-NBA team already. He was an all-star his second year. Like, it's been on and popping for Luka ever since his second year in the league, really. Zion, again, the injuries, it's just hasn't been the case with him. Wemby, Wemby's already a much better player than he was in January. It's March. I honestly believe Keenan, like, just from what I'm watching, this is my assessment. His team's not the greatest team. He doesn't have a ton of talent around him. This level that he's playing at, you give him 1 or 2 players, that's a playoff team. And I honestly think if they returned this same exact team right now, and just the way Wemby's playing, just give him 34 minutes a game, and you take this same team would be a play-in team next year. I think their final record's probably going to be, it's not going to be good, obviously, but I think they're going to have a good post-All-Star game record. And you can see, like, that team plays through Wemby now. They're not shying away from him. They're really letting him cook. In my opinion, Keenan, he might be the best defensive player in the league, and certainly the best defensive weapon in the league right now. But
him or AD. AD's been on one this year, but yes.
AD's great. And that's why I would say for sure he's the best defensive weapon. Like, I mean, who was the second pick this year? Scoot, right? So, well, let's just do it like this, because he gets compared to
Brandon Miller was. Scoot was the third, but Scoot was the second best prospect.
let's do it like this. Let's do it like this. Well, I mean, right. Yeah, most of the year Scoot was the second highest prospect, but
Yeah.
let's do it like this. He gets compared to Chet a lot. You put Wemby on the Thunder right now.
They're the favorites.
I don't want to say they're favored for the. I don't know if they're the favorites, but they're like. I think we're taking them a little more serious. Than
they're my
right
favorite. Now. They're my favorite. I'm sorry, but like I understand, and I really like Chet. But if you're giving me a taller, little more athletic, better ball handling, about the same shooting from three, because Chet's actually a pretty good shooter. You're just giving me a better defending and better offensive playing Chet, then I'm probably gonna. We're probably okay. Like honestly, they're the favorites to me. I think they could beat the Nuggets because the thing with Jokic is that he can bully you, but you can bully Wemby, but his arms are just so long that it doesn't matter. Like he's gonna block. You Jokic, can push him back, and it's still gonna. You push him back, he just goes from 7'4" to 6'11" with huge arms. So it's like, I'm still tall enough to block you. So it's like, it's crazy.
We'll talk more about Jokic as the year winds down, but you do make a good point. Like my probably favorite thing about Jokic is that if you take away his playmaking and just make him play one-on-one, he could easily average like 34 points a game. You know what I mean?
He could do what Luka's doing right now, numbers-wise. Like 34, 9, and 9. I mean, he'd probably be like 34, 11, and 6. But yeah. Or what Embiid was doing prior. But yeah.
My point just being like, if you make offense or scoring his primary focus, like he can easily just either get good shots for himself or just bully you, like just back you down like Shaq would and just get you 2 feet from the rim and lay it in. Like he's that effective as a post player, right?
Yep.
Wemby, in that case, he could get Wemby under the rim and Wemby would still be able to somehow affect your shot from under the rim. And you just don't have that with any player. He could honestly, like, I'm not putting GOAT on him, but he could feasibly go down as the greatest defensive player of all time. Like he might be, like he's already just has such an effect on the game, whether it's just at the rim or stealing the ball. Like I said, I think he's the greatest defensive weapon in the game right now for sure. And I think you could almost already call him the best defensive player in the league. And if he's not that, I think he will be by the end of next year. Just by he has such an aura about him on defense. You know what I mean? Like you just have to be aware of where he is at all times, and he can cover the other side of the court just by having his hands up in help defense. So nobody has a weapon like that.
To be quite honest with you, he's not going to be, because his team success does matter to an extent. He could easily win Defensive Player of the Year this year. It's most likely going to be Rudy Gobert because of the fact of like how that defensive unit in Minnesota has turned around. But if they gave it to him, it makes sense. Like right now in 29 minutes, it's 10 rebounds a game. So 8 defensive rebounds a game, 1 steal, and 3 blocks a game for Wemby this year. It's like,
and he's mainly the last 2 to 3 weeks, he's been averaging closer to 5 blocks a game. So if you get that all next year, if you're getting Wemby at 4 blocks a game and maybe 2 steals, 2.5 steals,
that's 90 centers numbers. You don't see 90 centers numbers today.
That's not even that's Wemby, Hakeem, and maybe David Robinson numbers. Like you're in a very elite class. You're in a very specific class. So I would say you could give him the Defensive Player of the Year next year. Just off that, I don't care if they had a shitty record, Keenan. Like if you're averaging 4.5, almost 5 blocks and 2 steals, you are the best defensive player in the league. Listen,
I don't disagree with you at all. I promise you, I don't disagree with you. No, absolutely. Absolutely.
I think he would win it. I really do.
No, he is on one right now. So yeah, no, I'm just looking through some of his game log. And like I want to give Chet, because we were talking about him for a second. He's playing phenomenally for a rookie, by the way. Like I don't want to try to make it sound like he's not good. Like he's 17, 8 with 2 steal or about 3 assists, almost a steal and almost 3 blocks a game. in his 30 minutes of play. And he's shooting 50 from the floor, 54 from the floor, almost 40 from three, and then he only shoots then he's shooting 78 from the line. On 90% of years, that's rookie of the year. Just so happens you have the guy who's putting up 20, 10, 3 assists, 3 blocks, and a steal. You just happen to have that guy ahead of you. But Chet's been playing great. Like he's definitely going to be a force for years too. So shout out to Chet for that. But Wemby is a problem.
Hey, Spurs, get a point guard next year and maybe get a shooter or two. And guess what? You're in play-in territory already with the level that Wemby's playing at right now. It's almost scary because the game's slow for him. The game's slowing down for him already, and he's 19, and he's already 7'5". He already moves like a guard. He's getting more and more confidence by the day with his off the dribble game. He's like comfortably pulling 5 to 7 threes now, which he wasn't necessarily doing at the beginning of the year. Like he was kind of limiting his shots, and he was not getting the ball because of the lack of point guard. Now he's just getting it going, and it's going to be scary. It's going to be scary when he actually eventually gets a second and third, like true teammate. And that's not to say his teammates are bad right now. I think they got some good pieces. They just don't have a point guard. But next year, if they improve the roster just slightly, they're already heading in the right direction because he's ready now. He is ready now. Just like the way Luka was year 2, shit, even year 1, Wemby's ready.
Yeah. One more quick thing I wanted to say. Obviously, we know he's averaging, as I just barely said, 20. So since the new year, he's averaging 23, 10, 4, a steal and a half, about 4 blocks on 50% shooting and 37% from 3, taking 5 threes a game, and shooting the ball from 83% from the line. Here's the kicker. Only 28 minutes. Less than 28 minutes. So, like, when you get him up to 33 minutes a game, like, what is that going to look like? 30, 15, and 5 blocks? I don't know what the league's going to do with him. It's a travesty.
You know what?
It's a travesty if he doesn't win it. Like, if he doesn't win by, like, year 8, we really need to sit down and have a conversation about this guy. Like, there's no reason why. Unless, like, the Spurs become a terrible organization and can't build around him, which, even then, I think he should probably still find a way to get to one at least because he's that good.
I mean, it's funny you say that because, I mean, LeBron didn't win till, like, I think it was year 8 for him. Maybe
it was year 8,
9.
yeah.
You know, I actually was going to bring up a topic to the group, had Brandon and Duke been here. The over-under you set at rings for certain players, like at the beginning of the career. And I think for Wemby, you almost got to put it
2.5.
2.5, right? Like certain players start at 2.5. Certain players, great players with not real expectations, like someone like Ja, maybe right now, you put it at 0.5.
Yeah,
you can start at 1 for him. Giannis, where he's at, he's got
3.
1. Now you want to
2.5,
right? 3 for sure would solidify it.
Mm-hmm.
He at least needs to get to 2. Giannis is almost like in the Aaron Rodgers territory, where like, okay, you got 1, but you need 2. You know what I mean? We're all gonna remember Aaron Rodgers. Like Aaron Rodgers played quarterback as good as anybody's ever played quarterback. Peyton, Tom Brady, Patrick Mahomes, you name them. Rodgers played the quarterback position as well as them. Did not have the postseason success.
If Aaron Rodgers gets to only 3, I think there's a real GOAT debate for him for people. They have it for only. They have it for Peyton. Like now, like obviously Peyton only has 2, but I mean it took Brady to get to like his 5th and 6th for him to really be it. But I think other people would be like, that's 4-1 touchdown interception ratio.
Who has Peyton Manning in the GOAT debate? Because
I think after ring 6 they took that out. But like for a while it was because of the fact that
for a while.
No, it really took.
I thought you meant like today.
No. I'm just saying it took until Brady got to like 6 and then 7 to where people were like, okay, we can't argue this anymore.
I think that was more with Montana over Manning.
Yeah.
By that time.
And I was gonna say
semantics.
because I'm thinking Brady Manning's last Super Bowl, Brady only had 4 at that point, and it was a conversation. Like when Manning retired, it was a conversation between Brady and Manning, because after Manning left, Brady got another MVP and 3 more rings. So then it kind of like separated him.
It depends on how you look at Peyton Manning's rings, because that second one, I mean, they didn't win it because of him at all. You know what I mean? I mean,
fair enough.
They almost won in spite of him. I mean, he did enough in that AFC Championship game. Don't get me wrong.
The playoff run, he was the perfect game manager. The season, he was awful. He got benched for Brock Osweiler, came back in, and then just ended up playing I'm going to play mistake-free football and just not do anything wrong. That was it. Did nothing great. Just did nothing wrong. So that was why. But yeah. No, so like when he retired, because even though you're right, it was really that defense and Von Miller was the best player on that team, you still have people like, okay, you got 2. He has 2 with 5 MVPs, head-to-head.
I don't know who those people are. I don't know who those people are, because that was a Trent Dilfer championship.
As I say, I was going to say, I would just remember in sports media, there was debate between the GOAT between Manning and Brady when Manning retired. It's now not a conversation.
I mean, maybe I don't remember it. Maybe I don't remember it. Maybe I'm just thinking more like among sports fans rather than sports media. Because, I mean, we allude to it sometimes, but sports media has been on a level of ridiculous for probably a good, like, it's at its most ridiculous now as far as like ESPN and whatever the other major networks are. Mm-hmm. Fox, I guess. But man, I would say for sure since 2016, 2017 has it just been getting progressively more and more ridiculous to where it's just, just throwing out arguments for the sake of argument.
I think this one was like a legitimate one with this one specifically because of the fact that, and then also head to head after Manning beat Brady last time in the playoffs, head to head, I believe it was 3-2 Manning and 2-1 in the AFC Championship game, or 2-0 in the AFC Championship game because they only played. That's what, yeah. So like it kind of got to a point where people were trying to make that argument there, and then Brady won 5, and it was like we can't really. And it was kind of him and Montana because Montana was 4-0, 11 touchdowns, 0 picks in the Super Bowl, and then it was like you got to 6, like we can't really. Then you got to 7 with another team. It was like okay, like then
he broke every record.
And they broke every record, and then now people are already trying to get Mahomes there, and it's like guys, just let him play, please, like. Mahomes is not even the best Mahomes we've seen yet. Can we let him get to the best Mahomes we've seen and then we can go on? Like there's a chance he can still get a little better, and that's crazy to think. But like age-wise, he's beginning to enter his prime. Like your prime for your quarterbacks typically was like it's 29 to 33-ish, depending on how long you stretch it. But obviously, that was a side tangent from what we were talking about, which was something related basketball. Oh, championships. There we go. That's what we were talking about. Championships
where you start
for players.
The over and under.
Where you start the over under. Like right now, for me, Luka's 1.5. I think he needs 2. I think he's great enough to where he gets 2. I would have Giannis 2.5 for sure. Jokic, I would have it 2.5. I think the over under there. I think 3 should be for Jokic, 3, but then it's hard because like you have to take into account the other person too. So I would say with Luka it'd be 1.5, Jokic and Giannis 2.5. I think for Wemby right now, is it 1.5 or 2.5 for you?
2.5.
2.5. Yeah, I think it's got to be 2.5. And then like for Ja, as you said, 1/2 for.
I think most great players. You got to put it at 0.5. Someone like Luka, difference with Luka compared to Wemby or LeBron is he can't affect, or even Giannis, is he can't affect the game defensively. But difference between him and, say, Harden, because he puts up very similar stats to what Harden did in Houston, right? Mm-hmm. Luka Luka can score the ball at an obscene level,
And he's a
playoff
dog.
defense. Exactly. Playoff defense doesn't affect him. You want to get physical with Luka, he can bully you in the post. Like he's gonna get it.
He's
How
somehow
he gets it.
better in the playoffs than he is in the regular season, and he's
That's why I
already
call him Luka Jordan. You might as well call him Luka Jordan because there's a lot of similarities there between him and early Mike.
Yeah, no, he's 30.
Man, like
he's 32, 9, and 8 in the playoffs. 47% from the floor, 36.5 from 3. Only 70 from the line. What a loser! But yeah, no, he's a he's a problem. He is an issue for the league.
There's a few different places I want to go off this because I have a lot of NBA thoughts from the weekend. I mean, let's actually get into this right now, just because I know
I actually
Duke
have
wanted to
one
talk
quick
about
question.
this, but
One quick
okay,
question.
Go ahead.
What's Jason Tatum's at? Is it just half?
0.5.
You think it's just a half right now? See, I feel like when he wins one, then it kind of goes up. Like, I feel like if someone like Dirk, when he won just one, it was enough. Like, all he needed was just one. If Ja was to win one, I think it would be enough for him. With Tatum, I just feel like when he wins one, it will be enough, but I feel like you almost feel like there should be more, especially because of the situation he's in. If that makes sense.
I'll explain.
Like if
I'll
Shea was
explain
one
why.
more. Yeah, okay, go on.
I'll explain why. So, take Kevin Durant. Durant at Texas, before he even got to Texas, we're like, this might be the greatest perimeter scoring prospect we've ever seen.
Yeah.
Like, we don't know what this is, but he's got some Dirk to him. He's got some T-Mac to him. He's got some MJ to him. He's got, like, we've never
George
seen this.
Gervin
We can't
to
wait to
him,
see
yeah.
it. Yeah, exactly. George Gervin. That's a great comparison. Jason Tatum didn't have any of that. We were talking about Paul George maybe once he got to Duke, but we knew he was smooth. We saw more of his Durant ability once he got to the league, but he didn't really have real expectations. So if Tatum gets one, and you mentioned the team that's around him, that's great, but that's the difference to me between Tatum and Jokic and Doncic and even Embiid. Embiid was one last year. You and Cam did. You guys said, or on your list, you put Tatum ahead of Embiid. And me, who has a complicated relationship with the Celtics as of the last few years, instinctively put Embiid ahead, even though like I'm Mr. like put the winner ahead of the talent. Like I'm like notorious for that when it comes to accolades and whatever. But you put Embiid on those Celtics, like just switch Embiid and Tatum. And Tatum's much more healthier than Embiid. Let's get started there. But just as a player and what Embiid imposes, it's a little more scary than Tatum. Now, Tatum shows the fuck up in the playoffs, always has, always will. You never have to worry about that with him. But the difference between him and Jokic, and now Embiid, but for sure Doncic, who else in the top 5? Curry?
Steph. I'd even put LeBron there still in this conversation.
I can't put LeBron. I
think
top
for what
5.
you're saying, I could put LeBron.
I
Top
don't
5
think,
in,
and that
oh, you're just meaning top 5 in the league, top 5 in the league. No, I wouldn't put him there, but I'm for like what you're saying in a playoff scenario. I still think you can.
Well, I haven't got to what my main point yet.
Okay.
What Jokic and Doncic have that Tatum doesn't. Doncic doesn't necessarily make everybody around him better, but he does so much for the team, whether it's assists, rebounds, points, and he can just go to another level. 73 points, as we saw. And Jokic can just put up such ridiculous numbers and carry a pretty average team around him, above average. He can just do that with anybody. You can put Jokic on any team and he's going to be successful.
Mm-hmm.
Tatum, he would make any team a playoff team. I can't say he'd make any team a contender. So he is the best player on the best team in the league right now. He is a franchise player. He is a star, maybe even a superstar. He is worthy of MVP votes. He's worthy of all NBA first team, but he's not Jokic. He's not.
It kind of
Embiid.
feels
we can
like
have that argument or debate.
I'm just comparing it to people who have won, obviously, an MVP championship. Early Curry, like before. I mean, Jason Tatum in the sense, like, in 2015, like that MVP season that Curry won was the best player on the best team. They won 67 games that year, and you were like, this guy can lead you and be and be the best player on a championship team. But you wouldn't have thought at that point you could just drop him on any roster and they would have done better, because there were multiple people who thought like Westbrook was better with a bad team than Steph.
Sure.
But Steph was a better, and it thought like, but Steph's a better winner and things like that. And then over time we've seen Steph with worse teams. Obviously, like he won a championship with a Golden State team that wasn't near the 2015 Golden State team or the 2016 kind of thing.
In the literal sense, sure. But you were asking originally about like the expectations and stuff. So
yeah, okay, we're going. Yeah,
and even
so
like
I was talking
I'm kind of
comparison with what you're saying,
and I'm relating this to the MVP conversation too, like because there's going to be a lot of Boston Celtics fans who are going to be arguing for Tatum to be MVP, and they're not necessarily wrong. But you can't tell me what Jokic is doing isn't more impressive as far as being more valuable. That's why I don't really agree with Curry's 2015 MVP. I'm not saying he wasn't deserving of it, but I don't necessarily agree with it. It was pretty average stats, especially for Steph. But, I mean, as a team, yeah, they were the best team, and he was a big part of that. The biggest reason to that, you could argue. But inarguably, he's definitely the biggest reason. But to me, it was Harden more valuable. Yeah, Harden was more valuable that year for sure.
Yes, so I agree with you, but I'm fine with the MVP, and it's because Harden's stats weren't so overbearing and overpowering to where it kind of negated the 67 wins.
But look at his roster that year.
Yeah,
his roster had
it wasn't great. It wasn't great at all. So no, I would have been fine if Harden won it. But like, because he only averaged that year 27, 6, and 7. Great stats. But I mean, we saw 2-3 years later, we saw him averaging 36, 7, and 7. So like, I'm not trying to take away from Harden, because you could have given it to him. He did win the Players MVP when they did that at the Eskimos. But like, so he won the Player MVP that year, anyways, too. But like,
yeah, they did. They basically started an NBA Players Association awards for that, literally for that reason, because that was back when
I honestly want to say that was the first year.
It might have been. I
think
I want to say they started it. They might have started that summer, like after the voting, and it was really because of that. And they did it for a few years, and then apparently just stopped for whatever reason.
Yeah, but like this,
just strictly when it comes to
go on.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, just basically for this year though, the way that Jason Tatum would have to win MVP for Jason Tatum is the Celtics would have to get 65 games plus, because 65 games,
which they might.
Yeah, they might. And that's 65 plus games is a historical season winning wise. Like, you don't have too many teams in the history of the NBA who go up to 65 plus. And I believe in every single year, the winner was an MVP, won the MVP on the team that won 65 plus, except I believe off the top of my head, the Spurs, because they won 66 maybe? I gotta have to fact check this. I want to say they won 66 the year that the Warriors won 73. I want to say the year the Warriors won 73, and so that was the only reason. Because
it might have even been 69. It was a high win, and they somehow didn't even make the conference finals because the Thunder outplayed them. That's a crazy year.
Because there was also part of, like, the Warriors were obviously going for the record, but there was also a little part, like, they can't slip because the Spurs were playing such a good basketball that they were like a few 3 or 4 games back. So they were also playing for something too, because they're still playing for that 1 seed. So I think in my memory, that's the only one I can think. There might have been other years where like there's 2 65 win teams, but pretty much what I'm saying is every year there's a 65 plus win team. That guy typically wins the MVP. So that would be the barrier to get to. But like when
that's kind of
Jokic is averaging 26, 12, and 9, and Luka's averaging 34, almost 35, 9 and 9, and Jason Tatum's only 27, 8 and 5. And then you see in games like the Warriors, which we'll probably talk about, it wasn't Jason Tatum that won that game. It was really Jaylen Brown in the first. Jason Tatum came along in the second, but there's also Kristaps Porzingus, and they also made 25 threes, so it was like a whole team effort thing. And that's kind of what the Celtics season is, but you can go on with what you're saying.
Yeah, I mean, they did all that without Porzingus yesterday too, which
Oh,
is
sorry, not Porzingus. not
scary.
Yeah.
But I mean, what you said about that stat with like players on teams that win over 65 games, like they all have MVPs. That's kind of my problem with it in general. Is I feel like Steph kind of won the award off that. People would kind of point to that, and I just hate awards or MVP specifically that are okay. We're going to give it to the best player on the best team because to me that's not necessarily an MVP.
Mm-hmm.
Again, I'm not saying that's not deserving. I just hate that's when that's people's reasoning or that's people's narrative for that person or that player win an MVP.
I was say I agree.
We talked about it all year with football.
Go
on. But back to the original point of, and we can kind of transition into the Celtics after this. I think you got to put it at 0.5 for Tatum. If Tatum won one ring, I don't think we look at his career as a failure. Much like Dirk. Dirk got one.
Melo, if he would have gotten
but
one.
Other players like, yeah, right. Melo, it would have validated. There's certain players that would validate, and then
Obviously,
there's some once you get one. Barkley would have validated for sure, but there's players once they get one, the expectations change. Like Mahomes with 3, you're battling Brady at this point. Now you're chasing ghosts at this point. Much like LeBron came into the league with that. Now Mahomes from
4.5.
You got 3 this early.
He's easily set at 4.5.
Yeah, exactly. Easily. And that's tough. That's tough to get 2 more.
No, it's crazy.
It's going to be incredibly tough.
It's crazy to say that, but he's set at 4.5 easy right now.
Yeah, and look, if Mahomes just happens to three-peat this year, I don't think it's going to happen. I think it's nearly impossible in football to three-peat if the Patriots couldn't even do it. If Mahomes three-peats, much like we're LeBron with this 40K thing and LeBron being the all-time leading scorer in the history of the NBA, that kind of, you have a different argument against Jordan, right? Mahomes, if he three-peated, he'd have a for sure different argument against Brady that you could kind of throw.
Yeah.
Because like even right now with 3 rings from Mahomes, and again, we talked about this recently, but it just sounds crazy for me to say, okay, yeah, he's better than Aaron Rodgers now. Like Aaron Rodgers had a whole career of just like insane football, or Manning too. Like it's hard for me to just automatically put Mahomes ahead of guys like Manning, Rodgers, and Montana, who had a whole career and a whole legacy onto themselves when we don't even know what Mahomes' second half of his career looks like. Granted, if Mahomes, and we brought Mahomes here twice now, but granted, if Mahomes has, the career we think he's going to have offensively and does continue to grow, then of course, yeah, he automatically ascends. He's already got the 3 rings and is the main part of those 3 rings. But
yeah, and like the over-under can change.
Tricky.
And the over-under can change throughout a career. Like Brady in 2005, his over-under probably would have been 4.5 because of the fact that he already had won 3.
I don't know about that. I mean, I get what you're saying.
No, but
it probably would have been.
Okay, 3.5. 3.5 then. Then 3.5.
He's
winning one more would. I mean, you would have been fine. But okay, let me say this: after 2007, Brady's Super Bowl would have been at least 3.5, if not 4.5. After you win an MVP and put up 50 touchdowns in a season, get to the Super Bowl and lose again, you've got to win.
You might be right about that 05 thing too, but you also got to figure it was a bit of a different league then. It was still a lot more physical then, and you still had a good crop of quarterbacks. You still had a lot of good quarterbacks who people at that time thought, and were wrong, but thought were better than Brady or thought could at least be on his level at that time. So there was still a different sort of discourse around Brady. But I do like that hypothetical that you're saying, though. Like if we ask someone at, 2005, at the end of the 2005 season, what's Brady's over under? That's really interesting. Yeah, 4.5 seems high just thinking about it, but I probably would say 3.5.
3.5 to 4.5.
I mean, there's just.
Because like if you won 3 and 4 years and you're not even like the best you yet, like you've clearly shown the fact that you've gotten better and better, and you were 9-0 in the playoffs at that point. So like you don't even know what losing looks like in the playoffs yet. And I feel like at that point you're almost looking like at least 3.5, if not 4.5, is the conversation. Then I feel like when you get to 2012, it's just 3.5. Like he needs to win one more. Like I feel like it's just like he needs to. He went twice and lost. I feel like he needs to just win one more. And that's why
For
that
sure.
Seahawks one was so big, because he could have stopped there and then would have
Especially
been
the Pats
like,
fans.
especially
the Pats
yes,
fans, for sure.
yes. So he needed one, and then obviously after that one, he could, like, everything else was icing for him, if that makes sense. Like
if we keep it football,
yeah.
If we keep it football right now, we'll get back to basketball. But Lamar, right now, like especially after this performance we saw, he needs one. He needs one for us to not call him overrated.
Josh Allen needs one, in my opinion. He needs one.
Needs one.
Burrow
for
needs
sure.
one.
And if those type of quarterbacks do end up with 0, we could at least be able to point to, like, okay, he played great even in playoff game. You know what I mean? You can't be like with Peyton Manning when he had his struggles. You could legitimately point to Peyton Manning for the struggles. You know, right? It wasn't just the team around him. Football, there's so much chances, right? There's so much just randomness.
And Lamar has not played great in the play. Like, Lamar had the great game against the Texans this year, so he has had his great playoff game. But overall, Lamar has not been the same quarterback in the regular season to the playoffs. So he's kind of more so in that Manning. 2 MVPs now. You're not having the playoff success. Does it translate? Like, obviously, it's not the exact same, because Manning coming out was like the best prospect ever. And then when you're not having the playoff success, it's kind of like, what are we doing? It's really kind of like LeBron in the sense of, like, so that's why, what are we doing, Bron? Like, we've got to win. We didn't even get to LeBron's whole early career.
Yeah,
Mavericks thing, because LeBron coming into the league's 2.5. It's easily set at 2.5. Like, there's no doubt.
Oof. Yeah, at least, yeah.
At least,
sure.
like, we can't set Wemby at 2.5 and him not have maybe 3.5, to be quite honest with you. Like, LeBron,
let me finish up my Lamar point. Keen, you're taking me on so many goddamn tangents now, because
I'm sorry.
There's stuff I want to talk about, but we can transition to LeBron too, because we got to get to his 40K. But Lamar to me right now, just to wrap a ball on this football one that we got tied into, he's a lot like Giannis, right?
Yes.
Once Giannis got one, then you say, okay, Giannis is for sure talented enough to win more than one. You can say multiple time champion. Lamar's one where he's for sure got to get one with these 2 MVPs. And once he gets one, then we can say, okay, now go try to get 2. So he's one that it'll change.
But LeBron, we satisfied with 1. Like with Lamar, we're satisfied with 1.
For sure. LeBron, you're probably right at 3, where you'd want him to get 3, especially because you'd put him in that category with Magic and Bird. Like, we put Magic, Bird, and Jordan on him immediately, right? We put those 3 on him immediately. He wasn't even in the league for
yet.
Sure.
And
he wasn't even in the league. So 3, literally, I think you need to get to 4 for sure to even make that argument with Jordan. And he got to the 4, of course. So yeah, I think 3 would have been fair for LeBron coming in. 2.5, the line was. And
2.5 had to be the line. Like with Wade coming in,
it was probably
with Wade. It was 1. Like coming into the league with Wade, it was
someone
like Wade get to 1.
Yeah,
and then
Wade didn't even have any expectations. Wade didn't have any expectations on him. Like Melo had. It was LeBron and Melo and Darko who had the real expectations on him coming in. And Darko in his rookie year got his 1, right? Got his 1.
He did get 1.
He got to pay. He got a Udonis Haslem participation trophy for it, but he got his 1.
He got 1.
So he exceeded Melo there, I guess. But no, LeBron and Melo had the real expectations coming in. Dwayne Wade then developed the expectations after the rookie year, because he had rookie of the year buzz too. But
like, yeah, go on.
I mean, no, yeah, I was just saying, certain players, certain just great players, baseline just great, like Tatum, like Dwayne Wade early on. You set it at 0.5. I think Durant's one you could have put at 1.5. Yeah, coming in, just because
Durant's absolutely
he had real hype.
Durant's now at 2.5. Like, he needs to win 1 more. Like, doesn't need to, but
for
like
sure.
To really,
he does. He does, just the same way Kobe needed to win after Shaq left. Yeah, Shaq and Kobe both had that. Durant absolutely has to. Curry would have had it. Curry won one without him. Durant absolutely needs to. That's why him and Kawhi are like 2 of the most, from this era, from this past 10, 15 years, they're the 2 hardest to evaluate.
Because Kawhi's the exact opposite than Kevin Durant. They both have 2 rings, but like, obviously Durant joined the 73-9 Warriors for his 2 rings, and Kawhi just got 2 rings, obviously one on a great team, and then the other one went to Toronto for 1 year on a rental year and then got his ring and then left. But he doesn't have the regular season statistics.
Was for sure the reason.
Oh, yeah. No, absolutely. Absolutely.
Sure
because like Steph averaged like 27, 8, and 8 over those 2 finals. So it's not like he didn't have a great Robin, if you want to even call him Batman. So like, yeah,
Warriors could have brought back Harrison Barnes and won that title.
Paul George could have stepped in there, but, like a wig.
But
like,
even just a starting level 3, the Warriors. There's different ways they could have constructed their team and still won it in 2017. Would have been a hard road, but they still could have conceivably won it. They didn't need Kevin Durant, and we bring up required. We bring up the 2016 summer way too much, but we're on it. But yeah, no, Durant definitely has to win one before the end of his career.
It's the most important summer in modern sports.
I would say 2010 really would be
2010 or 2016. 2010 or 2016
that sets off everything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
2010 sets off everything. Sure. You don't get 2016
second then
without 2010.
You're fair. Second one, because 2016 shapes the entire NBA today, in my personal opinion. Like the way way all the movement happened. LeBron could have stayed in Cleveland possibly, because what if LeBron wins another in Cleveland, which is more of a possibility actually if Durant doesn't go there. Like you're talking about
his second Cleveland stint. Like
talking his second Cleveland stint. What if LeBron gets to 4 in Cleveland? Does he leave? I don't know. What if Durant?
I think LeBron was coming to LA no matter what, especially with Bronny playing out here. I don't think that was like the worst kept secret of the league that he was going to LA. Like everyone knew a year ahead, maybe even 2 years ahead of time, that he was going to LA.
I do think though that the fact that he wasn't gonna beat, like I feel like if you win, like say he 2-peats and almost 3-peats in Cleveland, like could he leave? Absolutely, but does he leave? I don't know. It's a question.
I think he would have
possibly.
And I'll tell you this: if he would have, there would have even been better places for him to go after. Like he wasn't returning to Cleveland, right? Mm-hmm. There would have been better places for him to go other than LA.
He could have went back.
There would have been better free agent options. Exactly, and he chose. I mean, LA was always going to happen. It seems like, especially
with Miami. If we're going to be honest with you, I mean, Miami's
should have stayed in Miami.
Listen,
you can't tell me. Oh man, yeah, exactly. We're getting off on tangents. You can't tell me that Spoelstra's become the best coach in the league, and Riley's famously one of the best executives in the league. You're telling me, nope, we're not doing it. We're not getting on the way you have, certain responses to Kobe's legacy. Yeah, I can bring up certain things to LeBron where I'm not shitting on him at all.
No, it's just the facts. You're going to try to convince, right? I'm going to say, you're going to try to convince me that the Heat are continuously right now with Jimmy Butler and crew in the finals or the Eastern Conference finals are making deep playoff runs, but they couldn't have figured it out with LeBron. That's what you're going to try to tell me? That team who develops whomever, doesn't matter if it's a Duncan Robinson, doesn't matter. We're seeing it with Jaime this year. They can take whatever they draft. They draft better than you. They develop better than you. It doesn't matter. And your name's LeBron and you live in Miami. I'm pretty positive you could have gotten someone to go there. That's so let's not make this seem like Pat Riley, Eric Spoelstra couldn't, and LeBron James couldn't have mustered up getting to multiple championships if Jimmy Butler can do it. Sorry.
No, you're exactly right. I mean, the two things I would say to the LeBron would have never won in Cleveland the first time, or LeBron couldn't have won in Miami, I guess in his first stint there, or second stint of his career. Yeah. But you're telling me LeBron, if he just stays in Cleveland, let's say he signs a 7-year deal in 2010 to stay with Cleveland, you tell me LeBron doesn't win one championship because he's in Cleveland? Of course he would have won one.
The over-under for LeBron went from 2.5 to just a half after that season.
He would have at least won one. Over. That's my thing with great players. Like, he would have at least won one. He probably would have won 2. Like, eventually, if he would have had at least one, great players are coming to play with him in Cleveland.
You can't tell me Giannis can go get one and he couldn't have gotten one.
The way Giannis attracted Dame, that's what would have happened to LeBron. So LeBron probably still
same
gets 3 in
market.
Cleveland.
They're in the same division.
Exactly. Literally.
Like, it's the same
Literally.
market. It's the same market. Cleveland and Milwaukee.
Ohio and Wisconsin. So
it's the same market. Both sports towns, but also rural areas that people really don't feel like going to. Dame's bored right now.
And then you're telling me they wouldn't have built him a championship level team from 2015 on. Some would say that's even a better part of LeBron. Like, come on, you get LeBron still in his prime, and you're just building around him in Miami. Yeah, no, of course he would have won more in Miami. So that's my
Wade had a resurgence in 2016. They almost got to the Eastern Conference Finals against that Cavs team that year, which they probably would have fared better than the Raptors did in that series.
Probably would have got back if Bosh doesn't have his health issues.
If
Bosh they probably get back to the conference finals.
Yeah, like listen, it's. The LeBron leaving,
there's a lot.
Like I get it. You go back home, you do whatever, fine. But like it's more of a, and I also like there's more of a conversation of would Durant have won one without going there, because Durant's not at that level.
Without going to Golden State,
yeah,
I think
that's
sure,
more of a question, because we've seen players of Kevin Durant's status not win a championship. We have never seen someone of LeBron's status not win a championship. Never.
What's the thing?
He's too good.
I mean, Durant. If Durant has top 5 potential, if LeBron has automatic top 5 potential, you'd say Durant has top 15. So I can't say. There's not too many players of Durant's caliber that don't win.
Not too many, but like you can put him more in the Charles Barkley, Allen Iverson-ish range. Allen Iverson less because of the height, but like he's in the Charles Barkley range. But that's the one knock on Charles.
I'd say he's more in the Garnett range. Garnett was supremely talented. He was a highly touted prospect, and he was a player like we hadn't really seen before. Like he came in as a 3 because, much like Durant, length, defensive potential. I mean, you want to talk about someone like Wemby? Garnett is probably the other like greatest like defensive prospect like that we've seen aside from Wemby.
Yeah, Wemby and AD was another one. Like, but like there have been certain people who have come into the league where you're like, okay, he's automatically going to be a top 5 defender by like year 2.
But I think for sure, and I've said this on here before, I think for sure if Durant stays, like if him and Westbrook just don't break it up, their team that they were returning the next year had Sabonis on it. And I think Oladipo was the trade they'd made before free agency. So that team would have been even better than the team that made it to the conference finals and was up 3-1. So, yeah, Durant, we see it every year. There's injuries. The teams that are always supposed to break through always have their chance. That's why LeBron and Durant leaving, like at the times they did, it was kind of lame. More so now in hindsight with LeBron leaving Cleveland. Where he went was more so the problem. But all these players, name a great player in history of the NBA, they at least get to the finals. They at least are in the conference finals maybe 3-4 years in a row.
Other than Melo. If you want to count him as
other than Melo.
That's literally the Melo and T-Mac are like the 2 greatest players to not really do that. And like off the top of my head.
T-Mac more so has reasons than Melo. Melo did not live up to his potential. Still a Hall of Famer, but he could have had a much better career.
No, Melo could be in the conversation of like Durant, really. Like he really could be in that conversation.
He could at least be in the Dirk Nowitzki range.
I think they're in the same conversation, just in like different ways. Like I think if you're all time talking, Dirk and Durant are really close to each other, but obviously they just have different trajectories on how their career was. If that makes sense.
I guess I'm someone who was here for like, I remember Dirk when he was kind of looked at as the 3rd or 4th power forward. Like I remember when it was the hay of power forwards with Weber and Garnett and Duncan and Dirk and Rasheed Wallace. And Dirk was still definitely highly touted, but he definitely had his postseason, I want to say failures, but they would lose. He'd always deliver, but they
lost as a 1 seed to the 8 seed.
And I'm talking about before that. I'm just saying
2000s. Like he's had his you can say he had his failures, and then obviously like
but I'm saying early on. I'm saying early in his career, like before we even got to that point.
Yeah,
with Dirk, he didn't have the expectations maybe a Durant did. Whereas again, Durant was like a actual, like we saw him as a prospect and was like, what the fuck was this? Dirk was at 2, but Dirk didn't have the expectations maybe in year 4 or 5 that Durant did.
Yeah, okay. I'm
Especially after
thinking more
Durant, like,
finale
leads the
rather
team to
than the
playoffs.
beginning. You're saying more beginning than finale. Yeah, okay. We're same page.
Well, I'm saying the reason why I view where they are in their career maybe a little differently is because I've seen and remember how, what the rap on Dirk was from my point of view. Granted, I was still young, but we were off on a whole ass legacy tangent, and I was gonna wrap it up somewhere in there. God, where the fuck did we start with this?
MVPs. It was projecting MVPs, earning championships from people.
I was probably gonna say something about Durant, LeBron, but I was gonna say just like I said, all those great players eventually get to the finals, right?
Yeah.
And that's why I think Durant with the Thunder would have won one to tie that back. And
that
I
don't
said that,
see
but
that one.
tie
I
that
don't
back.
know. I think Durant would have. I think Durant definitely could have won one. I just don't know if it was that iteration of the Thunder. I think if we're talking like Dirk, I think you might have had to have a different iteration of the same team. I don't know. Like
They would have at least had the core of Durant and Westbrook. They had enough success for themselves, and God, some of the reasons they didn't make it to the conference finals in those years of their prime was because of like an unlucky injury. It was never because they didn't show up.
Yeah, well, I mean, because they went to the finals in 12, and then 13, I believe Westbrook was injured, and then 14, I believe 13 Durant, or then 14 Westbrook. Then there was, because that was the Tony Allen year when Durant couldn't get by Tony Allen, and then afterwards they just ran into a Spurs team that was really good.
Like 14 Spurs won it.
First and 14,
15,
and then the first team was
15.
the
I think Durant got injured.
Yeah,
right?
Durant got
15, someone got injured.
Durant got injured in 15 because Westbrook got injured in like 13 from Patrick Beverley's knee, and then that was a whole feud between him. And then obviously 16 was the year that they lost a 3-1 lead to the Warriors. Like that was because that was supposed to be. I mean, this is gonna be the last point, and then we can go on to what you're talking about, but. Because 16 was not supposed to be the Warriors year again. The Warriors were actually like a disrespected champion who proved why they should be champions. They won 67 games, but they were more so like they won because of injuries. Steph's really good, but was he even in the MVP? Was he the MVP of that season?
There was legitimate questions.
There was legitimate questions about the entirety of the team. And then the Thunder were thought about more. Steph Curry wasn't even thought about for being in like MVP conversations for the year afterwards. I believe like he was even top 5 on the ESPN polls and things like that. Like his odds weren't even top 5. And then they started 24-0 and won 73 games. And Steph scored 40 in game 1 against the Pelicans, I believe, and then scored 53 2 weeks later against the Pelicans and was putting the world on notice. And yeah, but the Thunder, and which is why that regular season shot from Steph is like one of the greatest shots in regular season history, because that Thunder Warriors matchup was like built up to be it. And it was that in the regular season, and the game lived up to everything you would expect. And then it ended with a Steph Curry 37-foot bomb he confidently shot with time on the clock.
We're about at the anniversary of that. I think that was February. So
that was February 27th, I want to say it was. So we've passed the
remember the date.
I want to say it was February 27th. I'm going to check myself to make sure I'm ready, but go on.
Yeah, I mean, I've said this. It seems like a million times, but I've said it definitely on here. Durant just stays. We even get more rivalry for the Thunder and the Warriors. Like that becomes an all-time great rivalry if he just stays. And
yeah,
that's what happens. You eventually get over the hump. All right. So last week.
Yeah.
So you eventually get over the hump, though. We've just seen it time and time again.
We can really talk legacy stuff all day because that's what we do. This is what we do off
I have
air.
so many arguments and counter arguments to literally any player I've watched.
No, that absolutely. There's just so much to talk about, and I mean, we talked about 25 players there. We talked from KG to Dirk to LeBron, Melo, Steph, Jason Tatum. Like we just went all over with it because like that's just how the NBA works. Because you compare everything, because everything is comparable. But you're right.
To some degree.
It really is. And history does repeat itself, and you are right. Every great one even if they have to leave a situation typically, but every single great one will get one. KG got one. It was late. Dirk got one. It was late. Like Charles Barkley. Yeah, they're Charles Barkley may not have won one, but he did go 6 with Jordan. AI was a great one. He did go 5 with the Lakers, but they were obviously way overmatched in that series. Stockton and Malone, they both Malone went to 3 and lost. Well, obviously it was on the Lakers one when they lost to the Pistons, but like they had 2 legitimate shots. Patrick Ewing, he was in 2, I believe. So like he had his shots too. Like every great you can think of has either been to a finals or had their shot to get there. Really, the only one that hasn't been to one that's what's considered one of the great ones is Melo. Other than that, every one of the great ones like that typically have been there. So even like Clyde got to a couple. Clyde won one. He ended up winning one with the Rockets later on. So like pretty much every great that you can come up with, you take your top 30 players of all time. Everyone's played in the finals except, I mean, Melo may not make your top 30 because of that, to be quite honest with you, but like...
Melo's definitely not the top 30.
No,
Melo's probably close to...
He's closer to 50, and that's really why...
It's probably even closer to 60. Like, Melo really doesn't have... Melo's one of my all-time favorite players. Melo's not in the top 50 players of all time.
He's like in the top 20 for players all time. But like he's in like the top 60. Like if that makes sense. Like your player's favorite player is like Kyrie right now. But he was not obviously would never touch a top like 50 or 60 list because it's Kyrie. But like he's your player's favorite player. He could someday.
Kyrie, at least one thing I'll give Kyrie, who's also another one of my favorites. You're gonna suck me into a different conversation here again, but Kyrie, I can at least say like his conversation is completely different. He willingly sat like basically 2 seasons, and sabotaged that 19th season with the Celtics. Mm-hmm. He at least could have like we know he has a work ethic. Like Melo, the difference between Melo is in that Dream or Redeem Team documentary, where LeBron and Dwayne Wade say like. They learned their work ethic from Kobe. They saw Kobe up at 3 a.m. to go to the gym. And from there on, like that's what they started to do. 2009, they both have 2 of their best seasons of all time. You could argue that's each of their best seasons, LeBron and Wade. And they cut to Melo. They cut to Melo after Dwayne Wade and LeBron are saying this. And he was like, yeah, 4 a.m. I wasn't doing that shit. Like that's the difference right there between Melo and Kobe and LeBron and Dwayne Wade. So Melo for sure has got the talent to be as great as most players. I ain't going to say anyone, but most players. But he definitely wasn't maybe the team player as those guys and definitely wasn't willing to go the extra mile. I think there's some places where he's like the whole defense thing. I think he's probably a better defender than people gave him credit for. But he's
Kobe said he was one of the toughest matchups for him.
Exactly.
Kobe, I can't remember what interview it was, but he was going through like the 5 toughest matchups. I think he said Tony Allen was one of them. And he said Melo, and it was just because like toughest to go against on both sides. And that was because of the fact that Melo's 6'8", he's athletic and he's a big body, but he's smart. It's just like the fact of the matter is Melo doesn't put in the effort as we were talking about here.
He didn't put in max effort.
He didn't put in the effort that he should have. He could have, I should say. Because, like, he really could have been one of those guys. Like, really could have been one of those guys. Like, Vince Carter's another one of those guys where it was like...
We'll have to come in here, and we're going to get actually into this conversation eventually once we eventually do our dream pickup game. So we'll get to talk about some of our favorite players who... You know, in general, because we allude to our favorite players a lot, but I don't think we ever like explicitly say like what we love about this player or, you know, why this person might be our favorite player, this or that. So I think the 4 of us will get to expand on that more.
Because like Vince is one of my favorite. Vince is one of my favorite players. But yeah, what were you saying? What were you going to before? Like, what was your next point?
I want you to take the lead and then I'll go from there because otherwise I'm gonna take
so talking about one of my favorite players but not who ended up becoming it's a player I like, one of the most polarizing players of all time. LeBron got to 40,000 and I think that is gonna be one of the modern records that's gonna be something that's like pivotal Like, I think when Steph gets to 4,000 threes, it's going to be something like kind of like that too. But LeBron getting to 40K is something that I never thought I would see. I never thought someone would get to it. I don't know if we ever will see it just because of the fact of there's load management, the longevity that it does take. Like, it's going to be hard. Like, you would need someone like Luka to average 30 for like the next 12 seasons. And like, could it happen theoretically? Yeah, because Luka has such a control in the game and his game's not predicated on athleticism. So like, when he loses some of it, he would still be a very good scorer. But like, it would really take like 30 for the next 12 years for him to get to that. So, like, this record's going to be one of those ones that I don't see ever being broken. And especially because he still has a couple of years he can put more points on this thing. So, it was... Obviously, they didn't celebrate it as much as the breaking the record because he's already broken the record. But in every point now that he makes is technically a record. But it was really cool to see him get to 40,000. I think it was a really good moment.
It's extremely cool.
Yeah.
It's amazing to see what LeBron's actually become, right? And you're right. Luka probably has the best chance to do it. Depending on what you think Wemby can do, maybe him, but it's hard to see someone at that size playing as long as LeBron did. Luka feasibly could, and like you said, he's not athletic to begin with already, so. But it's hard to see anybody getting to that point. Longevity is a big reason for it with LeBron, and he's just been incredibly lucky, and I don't mean that like as a slight. I mean that like favorably. Like, he's lucky that he's never gotten that serious injury, but he's also taken care of his body enough to where he doesn't at least have the wear and tear, at least up until this point. He's starting to get regularly hurt now in year 20 and 21 now.
He gets regularly hurt like people in year 6. Like, so,
Right.
like, and he should.
Right.
I mean, he shouldn't even be playing at this age, to be quite honest with you. And he's a top 10-ish player in the NBA now. Like, that's still insane. And we take that for granted too much. Like, he's literally a top 10 player roughly in the NBA, and he's 40. Like, it's just crazy to see. He's been in the league 21 years.
I mean, I'm at this point with LeBron where it's just like completely appreciative. Like, it's dope to see everything that he's doing and still doing. And, he's obviously like, the face of the league, and he's the standard in the league and continues to set the standard. So, I thought Kevin Durant had a great quote about LeBron and how he sets the standard for the league. It was really cool to hear from his perspective as someone who's a peer to LeBron. But no, as someone who's been lucky enough to see LeBron's entire career and will still be able to continue watching him. Like, imagine if he does this till year 25, like how silly that's going to look. Like, that's the kind of thoughts I was having about Tom Brady, because Tom Brady could
50K.
He plays. Imagine if he plays till he's 50. But that's like how I thought of Tom Brady. Like, that's why I'm so mad that Brady retired last year, because I really thought like he could still play at a high level.
I genuinely feel like, and you and I both feel this, I genuinely feel he could go on the on the field right now and be top 15. Like, there's no doubt.
Like easy. Like, he keeps himself in shape. And that's the thing with LeBron. Like, he keeps himself in shape.
Did you see him run the 40, Tom?
I did, yeah. He was slightly faster.
He ran faster than he did like
his pre-rookie or pre-draft combine 40. Yeah, like, it's insane. Like, he keeps himself in shape. LeBron keeps the best care of his body, as we know. So LeBron could make it 25 years in the league. So like,
he'll never
want to
be
see
bad.
LeBron. It's hard to see it. The only thing that could happen is he gets a serious injury, and that's what happened to Kobe. Kobe actually probably would have had a real shot at 40K had he not gotten injured. But
yeah, that Achilles killed him. But
prior to that, it's really nobody. I mean, Kobe's the only one who had the longevity, and again, the Achilles did him in for his NBA career.
Yeah.
And LeBron luckily hasn't had that, and I think LeBron could play 25 years in the NBA so long as he doesn't get a serious injury. That's a huge bet to make. Who knows? I think LeBron maybe plays 3 more years.
I think it's the want more than it is the play at that point.
And he's definitely going to want to do it. Like, everything we know about LeBron seems like he wants to do it. I don't think Savannah is going to be an issue the way Giselle was for Tom.
Mm-hmm.
So, as so long as LeBron can play at a decently high level, I mean, he for sure will be playing at a high, barring injury, he for sure will at least be playing offensively at a high level next year.
It's crazy.
After that, we don't really know.
It's crazy to put this into conversation. Who retires first between Durant, Curry, and LeBron? You would assume it's LeBron. I would assume it's LeBron. But, like, for some reason, LeBron's so good that he could make it be Durant. Like, the only answer I don't think it's Curry. Like, I just don't think it could. I just think he's too good. And not that Durant isn't. But again, at the same time, Durant loves basketball so much that he probably could do it forever, too.
Durant's 6'11". I mean, Curry's going to be. I'm very interested to see how Curry ages, given his size, given that his game's more soccer than basketball with how much he runs. The league's in his favor as far as like the physicality of it, but I don't know. I'm interested to see how he ages.
And it's like how after obviously he came into the league, young guy trying to be a point guard, trying to really build himself up. Then he became the face of one of the faces, I should say, because obviously LeBron's there. Became one of the faces of the league and a top 5 player for going to probably be close to a decade, close to it-ish. Like he's been a top 5 player for about 8 years now. I don't think it's going to fall off this year. And it's going to be weird if he's going to be okay with going down. Or if he ever does. Like, because I thought LeBron was going to be going down at some point. I think he was going to be averaging 26 a game. But, like, if Steph would be fine being Ray Allen on the Heat, obviously. But, like, if we be fine being Ray Allen, or if he ever gets bad enough to be just Ray Allen, like, maybe he's just always at least 20 points, 4 rebounds, 5 or 6 assists, and can get you 40 on a given night if he needs to, if he gets hot. You never know.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. 20 points per game for Steph's. That's not really top 10 level.
No, not now. I mean, like in like 4 years. I'm wondering if he ever gets to that point where, like, if he's fine with that, like it wouldn't be top 10 level at that point. But like if he's fine with that, like being that guy, or if he like feels he still needs to be the 25 plus point a game scorer that he is now, like it's gonna, like, as you said, it's gonna be like he's probably the guy I'm most interested to see age, because he could go one of 3 ways. He could either just fall off, still remain great like he is right now, or he could go into just the shooter role, the point guard off the bench. Like, because imagine him, like 90% of him as a 6th man on a championship team. Like, that's crazy. Like that's crazy, because you have the competitive edge there. You have the guy who can literally get you 50 from 3. Like, that'd be kind of, yeah.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how they continue to age. And, you know, it's weird because LeBron's not nearly an effective defensive player right now. Like, he hasn't been for quite some time. But he is so good on offense. Like, you can craft some sort of something around him. I don't think he can be your best player on a championship team.
I think he can be 1A.
So I'm really interested. He can be 1A.
You need a guy as good as him, which is why the Lakers have a chance, because Anthony Davis on a given day can be as good as LeBron, which is why, like, I was talking about, like, I did this last year when we were going through the list. There are certain players in the league who are, like, right now can be easily just the 1 on a championship team. Then there's those players that right now are like the 1A, 1B. Like, I feel like Jimmy Butler's one of the weird ones, because, like, we've seen him get to the finals, but I think to finally get over the hump, he might need someone like right there with him. Dame's someone else that, like, to me needed that 1B, but Jokic isn't. Like, Jokic clearly can go win one without it. I think Luka can. I think Giannis can. I feel like Tatum needs a 1B at the moment, but, like, he's a weird one too, because, like, he's really good.
Tatum's the number 1. They just got such an incredible team around him.
Yeah, so, like,
sometimes the case. Sometimes
you just get that super great team around you being the 1. But, like, I don't know if you put Jason Tatum on just another team. I can't think of a team like if you put Jason Tatum on the Knicks right now, a healthy Knicks instead of Jalen Brunson, like, could he bring that team to a championship? maybe like a Luka. I feel Luka could. I feel Jokic. I mean, obviously everything has to play right, and like you have to play well. But like they have the opportunity to.
Depends who their point guard is in that case. It depends who their point guard is. Given you're replacing Brunson, but I see.
So
what
if you're
saying.
replacing, if you're replacing, say you're replacing trading Jalen Brunson and Julius Randle for Jason Tatum and Derek White.
Well, you said Brunson. We can't also put Randle in there.
Well, no, I'm saying, but I mean, but you'd have to replace something with something. That's what I was saying.
So if we're keeping Randle though,
if you're keeping Randle, then and you replace Jalen,
you'd have to give me like a baseline of some sort of point guard. But in general, are they contenders with Tatum right now? Yeah.
Emmanuel quickly.
They're contender. Sure. I mean, if Tatum's. I don't know if Tatum's top 5, but he's definitely top 8, right?
Yeah.
So if you got him in New York with Julius Randle,
and I just kept Emmanuel quickly, yeah.
Yeah, like sure you're a contender, like yeah. I mean,
you're an absolute contender, but can you win it? Do you think they could win a championship? Like truly,
we'd have to see it. We'd have to see it. It's hard to say.
Well, no, that's what I'm saying. Like with Luka, I think he could do it.
If you're on the short list. Yeah. But that's my point though. That's again my point with Luka and Tatum. Luka can do so much for you, but Tatum gives you elite defense on the other side too. That's what Luka doesn't give you. So and he's got a good coach, and it would all depend on the talent they still have around him. But if Brunson can do what he's doing in New York, of course Tatum can do what he's doing.
Oh yeah, I hope that.
And I think the Knicks are.
I don't think he could contend. Like he absolutely could contend, but like there's a difference between contending and winning.
Yeah, sure. And I think the Knicks are like a season away from really winning it. I mean, look, if they can get to, let's say they do get to the conference finals. I don't know how the fuck we got to these hypotheticals, but if they made it to the conference finals, the Knicks this year against presumably the Celtics, and let's say they got to a competitive game 6 against the Celtics in the conference finals, you can say that's for sure a contending team.
Oh, absolutely.
Say for sure they could have at least made the finals, right? Depending on how that game 6 goes.
Yeah.
And if you can at least get to the finals, let's say hypothetically the Knicks got to the finals against the Nuggets this year, right? We can say they probably give them a competitive 5. That would be the base. You'd say
it
they
looked
don't
like
get
last
swept.
year.
Right.
Looked like last year. The Heat didn't fold by any means. The Nuggets were just a better
team. Jimmy was injured. Jimmy hurt his ankle by that point. So yeah, they would be at the point of contending but not ready to win. I think they'd be at the same point with Jason Tatum. With LeBron, let's circle back to LeBron. I think LeBron would be better suited as like a number 3, doing what Draymond's doing right now. If you had Anthony Davis and pick another player.
Sorry, I was just thinking of LeBron in the Draymond role. like just the point guard, like at the top, like orchestrating there. Oh my god!
But realistically, that's what LeBron should be doing. That's how you're going to get the most out of him. The more you got LeBron playing like he was or has been his entire career, the higher you're risking him for injury.
And you can get him defensively at that point. Like I think he still has 20 minutes of good defense a game in him. I just don't think
in the playoffs.
In the playoffs, like I think you can. I think
is tough. LeBron's regressed a lot.
Good. Listen, good. Playing the passing lanes. That's not having to sit in the. I think just good defense. Like I don't mean like great. Like he's sitting down like he was on Rose. I mean like he has about 20 minutes of good defense. Like where you're like, okay, he's not a liability on the floor at all. Like he can definitely make some defensive stops and some plays here and there. Like you're pretty much a little bit above average defender. Like I think he's a little bit better of a defender than like Clay right now and things like that. Like I don't know. I just feel like he's not going to be Jalen Williams if you're going off like a younger guy, but like there's not much of a difference between him and Rory Hachimura for some of the game. Rory just has better legs because he's younger, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So like he's like an average, a little above average, like an average level defender for about half the game.
It would be a lot to ask of him. Like he's not even doing that right now in the playoffs. And that's really my thing with the Lakers is, come postseason time, they're going to be all right. They got enough talent to go out and beat a lot of teams, but they don't have the defensive players to do it. And you're asking LeBron
Jared Vanderbilt needs to get healthy again. because if he can come back healthy,
but
that's
even
the
that's
guy who can
even that's not going to be enough, because then you'd still even at that point need high level defense from LeBron, and he just doesn't have it. So you're putting a lot on AD's shoulders on the defensive end, and if you don't have at least 3 or 4 guys who can defend, you take a team like Denver who can defend. They can absolutely get stops at the end of games. Lakers can't. Warriors, it's yet to be seen. They're probably on the bubble there too. They need all their guys.
They just need to.
But they haven't.
They haven't.
They've lost to every team that's on pace for 50 games. Their record's something like 1-16 against teams who are on pace for 50 wins at this point. It's a bad record like that. Then you couple that with what the Celtics did, which wasn't really about the Warriors as much as it is about the Celtics. They've been doing that to a lot of teams. I'll probably end with something on the Celtics actually, but LeBron at this point with the Lakers, they're 2 or 3 players short to me defensively, not offensively, and he has a player option this summer. He could become a free agent this summer. What's going to happen there? The Lakers are probably going to bring him back. All right, so you sign LeBron to a 2-year or 3-year deal that's high paying. Then what do you have really? What assets do you have? It's tough.
To me, this year they're missing a defensive guard. I think once they get their full roster healthy again, I think they're missing a defensive guard to play in the position of Russell and Reeves. Because obviously, I believe between the both of them, they can get you. Obviously, they play 30-ish minutes a game. I think in the playoffs, you could even shorten them to one getting 30, one getting 20-ish, depending on how their game's rolling for that day. But you need a defensive guard who could, a Lou Dort, per se. Just the first guy who came to my head. I just see him on the screen right now with Thunder Lakers. If they had a Lou Dort style of guy who can go play defense on the best guard defender or guard offensive player for the other team for 25 minutes at least, I think that would help them tremendously. But
that was their idea when they got someone like Cam Reddish. They put their eggs in the Cam Reddish basket, which why? He's not even his career looked like it was going G League level, and it still might be going that way at this point.
So
but I like their offense. I like their offseason moves. I really did. Because I thought Taurean Prince could be a guy like that for them. But they seem to just be really weird with their rotation still, and it's still a lot of D'Angelo Russell. Because you've got 3 legitimate guys in LeBron, Austin Reeves, and Anthony Davis. But
they've been missing because Vanderbilt's been out for a while. Cam Reddish has missed time. Hachimura has missed time. They haven't really had a full roster yet, so it will be interesting to see them with a full roster to see how the rotations look, how they look defensively. It's kind of like the Warriors now. We didn't really know what a full local Warriors team was looking like, but then they put it all together, and they're 12-3 in the month of February. So you're looking like maybe they can do something. And I'm kind of you're kind of trying to hold out that same hope for a Lakers faithful, if you're a Lakers faithful. But it's at the same time, you don't know, because then you have this young Thunder team who can play defense, who can shoot, get out and run. Then you have this Timberwolves team, which is the best defensive team in the league right now, with the defensive player of the year in Rudy Gobert. Cat has fit perfectly into that role. Anthony Edwards is obviously doing what Anthony Edwards does. The Nuggets are the Nuggets. You really need to say much about them. And then you have the Clippers, who are looking very good. I don't know when that's going down or if it's going down, but in my head, it's probably going down at some point. But right now, they're playing really good basketball. They have been playing really good basketball.
What makes you think it's going to go down?
The history of Harden, and Harden's the reason why I would go down. That's
but Harden's not their best player, though.
Harden is not their best player, but Harden is a very important player, because I think Westbrook now with that fractured hand, I don't know what his timetable is looking like. And the problem with the Clippers have been in the past is that they don't have a point guard. And I think that the lack of having a guard has been to go along with injury. In my personal,
has been their thing.
Well, health has been a thing too, but I also do feel there have been times late in game where the lack of a guard to orchestrate offense sometimes was a problem. Obviously, Kawhi, you would just give it to him, but they could get stagnant. So if Kawhi wasn't being Superman, which a lot of the time he was, which is why you compete in a lot of those games, but if he wasn't being Superman, they got stagnant. I don't
think they ever. I can't think of a time really when they were healthy where they've struggled to get bad shots, or I thought their offense was.
To me, that's
that.
what it kind of felt, but I could have been wrong on that. But that was my perception on it. But like, and obviously you put a lot of eggs into the basket of the fact that now you have it was the big four with Westbrook. Now it's really going to be the big three. Westbrook should be back for the playoffs, I think. I don't really know this timetable.
Sounds like he is.
He's probably going to be back for the playoffs, so you'll have the big four, but he'll have to get back in a little bit of rhythm. But it's a hand, so should be able to be in mostly playing shape because you can still work out with it body-wise. But so it's going to – but I also think that Harden can take you out of games. I really do. So it really comes down to James Harden. I understand that you could really sit him and go with a Westbrook, Norman Powell kind of line up there instead in the backcourt, and we'll see if Ty Lue will do that if Harden does start to go AWOL. Like he
will. That's the thing. He will. That's the difference to me with this Clippers team. I mean, you can tell me Harden all you want, but you still got Paul George and Kawhi, and Kawhi is
and then
as good
obviously the health is there too. Like with them, I'm just believing it when I see it, and I'm just not putting faith in it. And you know what? Cool. I could be dead wrong, and I'm not even trying to make it sound like I don't have like the most even reason to. I just like Harden, and there's something about him on teams to where like this just goes south. But you're right in the sense of on the Rockets, he was the number one guy. When he went to Brooklyn, he ended up becoming really the number two guy because of the fact that Kyrie was a little injured. Like that was weird. And they really only had one playoff together, and they lost to Boston in a sweep. And then you have the Sixers where he was the true number two guy because he's not going to have Tobias Harris and Tyrese Maxey wasn't fully what he is right now because he didn't fully get that opportunity because Harden was the primary ball handler. So it's like,
I mean, Maxey was cooking last year too.
Maxey was cooking for sure.
But they were ready. They were ready last year. It just, they coughed up Game 6 and then did not show up in Game 7. But
those are the
Harden.
Things
but
that's
Embiid, the Embiid of last year, that's not Kawhi or Paul George, and it's especially
but
not
they
Kawhi.
did blow a 3-1 lead too.
They did at the bubble where other teams blew. But they did that in year one. That's a difference. The years since, it's been injury luck.
Oh
it
yeah,
really
no,
has. It hasn't been.
It
hasn't. That's why when you say like lack of point guard, I never really got that from them because we never really got the chance to see Kawhi and Paul George together. Offense has never been a problem for them. To me, getting good shots has never been a problem to them.
Shouldn't be defense a problem, but that semi has been a problem too. When you have Paul George and Kawhi, you'd think not, but Kawhi's not the same defender, obviously, that he was before. But
can still lock up. Like he can still lock up.
He can get you a stop when you need it.
And I mean, look, I get it. Thunder, Timberwolves to me don't seem ready yet to make like the leap. They're good enough to get there. Don't get me wrong. They're good enough to get there just like the Thunder are. But you still, if you can keep Paul George and Kawhi healthy and James Harden and Westbrook with the surrounding players around him like Zubac, like Norman Powell, like Terrence Mann, they just have so much talent.
They make more sense, honestly, than like if you're going off historical facts, they make way more sense than a team like the Timberwolves or the Thunder. Teams that haven't really played in the playoffs don't just go from no playoffs to the championship. Like obviously the Timberwolves were in the first round, but like you typically go on some sort of at least second round run prior to going to a championship, if that makes sense.
Well, it's not only that, but let me ask you this, Keith. Let me ask you for real.
Yeah.
Who do you trust more? Let's say you had a hypothetical playoff game you had to win.
Mm-hmm.
If I gave you Paul George and James Harden,
mm-hmm.
and I gave you Karl Anthony Towns, which one are you taking?
Paul George and James Harden, then I'm trusting those two. I'm trusting those two more than but if you're giving me Paul,
and
if you're giving me Anthony Edwards and Karl Anthony Towns or Paul George and James Harden, that's a toss up. That's a question.
Let me ask you this: we're taking best players aside. We're taking best players. If you give you just James Harden or Towns, or if I give you just Paul George or Towns,
Paul George, I'm taking.
Both of them.
Listen, James Harden, I don't know yet. I really don't know. I really don't know. Paul George for
Keenan,
sure, though.
We talk about over under. Can you give me over under 0.5 playoff moments Cat has had? 0.5.
Over
All right.
0.5? I mean, no, because he hasn't had many, because he hasn't been in the situation many times. So no, I really can't give you, but I can give you an over.
But the
Can
times,
I give you an over under of 15 or about like 9 playoff games, 9.5 of bad Harden playoff moments?
hey, you got to get to the Harden's at least almost got to the mountaintop. Cat couldn't even get his teams out of the first round without Anthony or even with Jimmy Butler.
But
And
so maybe
Towns doesn't even look good in any moment. At any moment, we can at least say Harden looks good 95% of the times in playoffs. It's big games with Harden, and you're relying on Kawhi.
No, I completely understand what you're saying, but I'm just saying that
when it comes to the T-Wolves,
it's more of an unknown with Karl Anthony Towns at this point. We know he can't.
It's not. It's not.
But,
how many years of Towns have we got? He's like 8 years in.
Yeah, I mean, he's averaging 19 and 11 in the playoffs. Like, I mean, it's like we're in Towns.
That's cool with numbers, but like I'm saying, he's legitimately bad in the playoffs. And now you're going to ask him for real big shots down the stretch. You're going to ask for Mike Conley to defend the opposing point guards in the West. You're going to ask Conley to check Harden. You're going to ask Conley to check Curry. You're going to ask Conley to check who else we got in the backcourt? Luka.
Well, Shea. There's obviously
an SGA.
Well, I mean, of course. No, I'm not making it seem like the Timberwolves are a much better team than the Clippers.
No, I'm just saying. No, I'm going through. I'm just giving you the case. I'm just giving you the case here because I was big on the T-Wolves regular season. I don't necessarily trust that team in the playoffs with Conley having to be your point of attack and Towns being any sort of focal point. I trust Harden and Paul George as a supporting cast, absolutely. And then Westbrook, and then you got Ty Lue.
I trust, yes, all of them. The only conversation was Harden or Karl Anthony Towns. I just don't trust James Harden.
Right.
So like that's really what it comes down to. But I mean, I guess if you go to who do I trust less?
But my point here,
sure.
Because my point here though is, what team do you really see tripping them up before the conference finals when it comes to the Clippers? I can't see it. That's why I had the.
I mean, okay. So here, what team could I see them? Depends on what seed they are.
Like realistically,
Lakers, I think the Warriors or the Lakers could beat them in a series. Realistically,
neither one of those teams can defend at a high level.
I think the Warriors, the Lakers, the Suns, or the Mavericks could realistically beat them in a series, and they could play any one of them. That's what I'm saying.
And I would say really realistically, the Mavs.
The Mavs absolutely can. The Suns can.
But all four of those teams you mentioned though cannot really play defense or not deep enough.
The Warriors can play defense. They've been like a top 5 defensive team over the last month and a half since Draymond's been back. They've been a top 5 defensive team. The Warriors can actually play defense.
Okay, but they're also 1-16 against great teams. Like
but a lot of that has came without Draymond being in the lineup. Like you have to remember, he was suspended once and then suspended again. So like
maybe but he's back in the lineup. He's back in the lineup, and they're still losing to these good teams over the last month and a half.
Yeah, they've lost a couple games to some good teams. Of course,
I'm
saying in a 7-game series, we were going through it.
We haven't seen it from the Warriors though. Last year or
we haven't seen it from the Clippers. Really, that's what I'm saying. We haven't seen
Clippers. We have Clippers. I'm talking about this year, right now. Clippers. We've seen it from as far as they're beating good teams. They're beating them in everywhere. They're blowing them out. They're playing defense. They're getting ugly wins against the T-Wolves in an 89-88 battle. They're just like statistically much better than every team. The same way we're seeing it from the Celtics in the East.
Yeah, but
Clippers, there's like, what are you giving me? And if you're telling me,
the playoffs are different though. That's what I was saying. Look, the Celtics have no question because
I get that, but who's built for it? The Clippers are built for it. They got Ty Lue, they got Harden, they got Paul George, they got Kawhi. They're built for that season.
But
and
Harden's
you're getting a healthy regular season.
Playoffs. I'm giving you Kawhi.
He is though.
But how is he?
Dog, he's gotten to game 7. He's gotten to game 7 of these games. Yes, he's played bad in these games, but he still gets to the point in these games. Even last year, he cooked Boston in 2 games last year. We've seen it from him.
Terrible. No, Kyle. I understand.
But you got Paul George and Kawhi though. That's the difference. You ain't relying on Doc Rivers.
Joel Embiid. You're not on Joel Embiid, the MVP of the league, and Doc Rivers, an NBA champion coach.
And let me ask you though, what did Joel do in Game 7?
Joel didn't do anything, but we've seen Paul George come up small in moments. Kawhi's the only one. I'm not saying anything about Kawhi. No, absolutely. Kawhi can change it.
Paul George ain't ever gonna just roll over. That's a difference. That's why. And again, I'm basing this off of last week when I said, "Who do y'all have in your Final Four?" Which I don't remember who you said in the West. Did you say the Thunder? Did you say the Wolves? Did you say the Lakers?
I said
Did you
the
say
Mavericks. I said the Mavericks and the Nuggets.
Mavericks.
I said the Mavericks and the Nuggets because the Nuggets. I just said I watched Jokic put up 21, 15, and 15 with
Nuggets for sure getting there. We all had the Nuggets.
Yeah, the Nuggets. I'm not worried about the Nuggets in the slightest. I'm just saying that any one of the teams 10 through 7, I think have a chance against the Clippers. They have
a chance, but it ain't a great chance. Is my point.
It depends on who you're talking about.
And
it really depends on who you're talking about because I think the Mavericks match up with them. I think the Mavericks would have a pretty solid shot. I do because they have
Mavericks. I'm worried about defensively though.
PJ Washington has helped them defensively. Obviously, they have Daniel Gafford who they can put in. Derek Lively's been a really good rim runner for them. So, yeah, it's going to come down to can you get some stops late, and you trust the Clippers a little bit more. But, again, you don't just have Luka who can close. You have Kyrie who can close. And Kyrie's been playing phenomenal basketball with them. So, I think you can match firepower with firepower. It really just comes down to how important can PJ Washington, Derek Lively, Daniel Gafford be late in game. Because we've seen Luka himself take the Clippers to 6, but obviously that was without James Harden and Westbrook, but that was the Mavericks without Kyrie Irving, Derek Lively, and others. So there's less questions with the Clippers, but the Mavericks I think could answer that. The Warriors, it just really depends on how they're playing when they get there, because they've been playing very good basketball. So it just really all depends. Obviously, they just came off a huge loss, but otherwise, they still are 12-4 over their last 16. They've been playing well. The Lakers have been kind of figuring out themselves. So it all depends on what they look like in mid-April, because these teams, I do think, when all constructed correctly, they can compete with the Clippers. Obviously, the Clippers should be favored because they've had the better regular season and they've been the better team throughout the entirety of the season. So I'm agreeing with you and that they could be favored. You were just saying that I think they could be beat by any of those teams in the series because I do trust the championship pedigree of those teams and the players who have been in those moments multiple times against even those players and came out on top. Obviously, they've lost a couple times.
As has Kawhi, though.
No, I said as they've lost. I just said as they lost. Kawhi has been, obviously, he beat the Warriors in the finals. That comes down to injuries to me, but regardless, beat them in the finals. Beat LeBron in the finals already. Has beat him. So Kawhi is the game changer here too. Obviously, but Paul George is great. James Harden's great. Westbrook
and Paul
is
great.
George. No,
Paul George last 2 seasons has been playing really well in the postseason.
Paul George is Paul George is obviously an enhancer, an X factor. But Kawhi is a game changer. It's a different level, if that makes sense. He's a game changer. He just. Paul George doesn't put fear into your heart. You just know he's going to play very well, and he changes game. But Kawhi can put fear.
If Paul George is playing well, he's putting fear into your heart.
I don't think he's
same way Harden is if he's playing well. You show up to LA, and fucking Kawhi's got a 24-point game, 18-point game, and you got Paul George on the other side going for 33 with 6 threes he's capable of doing. That's putting fear in your heart.
He can win you games, but I don't know. I guess I'm thinking of fear differently.
If you're talking about Game 7, yeah, Kawhi, but I'm saying overall, you ain't looking at Paul George and James Harden you got to take them serious at the end of the day.
Well, of course you take them serious. We're not talking about taking these guys serious. They're of course serious. These are the stars.
I know, but
you
saying I get what you're saying with the fear. I get exactly what you're saying, but I'm also saying to a point you're going to fear Paul George.
Oh, you're going to respect him.
He's not the legend Kawhi is, but
I guess there's a difference between fear and respect. You're going to put massive amounts of respect on Paul George. You're going to fear more so Kawhi, but no, that's all I'm saying. The word fear to me is for a few people. You put a few people in that.
Bird, Jordan, Magic,
you fear Luka,
Curry.
You fear LeBron. You fear Steph. You have high. You don't fear Clay, but you have a high level of respect for Clay because Clay can get you one. Like, we've seen him do it, but I guess I'm not putting – you don't go in there with fear like you lose sleep at night over Clay. You're like, you lose sleep at night over Curry. But Clay, you absolutely prep for. You get all that kind – like, you know what I mean? If that makes sense to you. But, like –
I'm having a hard time anybody fearing Klay Thompson right now, but I know 100% what you're saying.
Yeah, so
I'm
like,
just trying
like,
to put
think of 2016.
I'm just trying to put a little respect. I'm just trying to put a little respect on Paul George's name. That's all.
I'm
James Harden.
No, you heavily respected.
Heavily
respected. Just
I know what you mean by
feared.
fear, though. You save that for Jordan and LeBron. You save that for the short list. I get what you're saying.
Mm-hmm.
I do want to respond. So the Warriors, I do agree. If they're like at their absolute best, yeah, of course they can beat anybody. We just haven't seen it over the course of 2 years where it's like the glimpses look great. When you do see a glimpse, like, it looks great. And honestly, when it comes to that full team together, weird things going on with Wiggins again. Wiggins is out again, okay? But if you get that full team together for 2 weeks and they are in fact playing defense, and you can truly get an incredible series out of Steph, right? Because what he has done, Keenan, he does have games like he does yesterday where he just can't make anything. That happens way more often than it used to, right? So you're going to need a for sure number 2 guy with Golden State. But if they can put together like a full month and win some games against great teams, not just good teams, I'll take them a little more seriously. I want the Warriors in the conference finals against the Nuggets. We need that in some form of fashion. That would be an incredible series. I just think the safest bet right now is for sure the Clippers. In the East, I just want to rehash basically what we said last week. Like, we just went over why we still, or I passionately still have Clippers, Nuggets in the conference finals. Last week I said Knicks, Celtics. And I'll have a follow-up question to that, but I would change it right now to Miami already. I saw Miami play a couple games since then, and I really like what I saw. The Knicks obviously have injury questions now with Brunson, especially. It's already there with Randall and OG, and now you've got Jalen Brunson, who's probably going to miss extended time. So, I would favor the Heat. Even, I mean, who knows? Could be extended time, could be a week, could be who knows. But he is injured. I just right now would favor the Heat in a series with the Bucks. I have more trust in them to make it back to the conference finals against the Celtics. I think it would be a tough task for them to beat the Celtics, but just wanted to elaborate on my reason, or in this case, a new reason, since I got a new team. I think that the Knicks at their best, I think they're more talented than the Heat and just as tough. I think that would be I think that would almost rival like the 90s Knicks in Heat series. Like, you might have some 70-point games.
It would be a worse
best.
version of last year. Like, that's what we thought last year going into that Knicks.
Exactly. And yeah, I mean, obviously I'm being a little bit dramatic when I say that, but I do think
you would see more games like the 88-89 Timberwolves Clippers than you would see of like the 113 to 120 games. Like, you'd see more of those 88-89 kind of games like that.
It would absolutely be a dogfight. But the Heat are better than last year. And again, with the Knicks taking a bit of a step back here with these injuries, the Bucks just have so many questions right now. I'd bet on the Bucks more next year than I would this year, just because it's such a weird season for them. But Miami looks better and they look ready. Like, you can tell they're really getting into playoff shape right now. Jimmy Butler's taking it more serious. And you truly have the best coach in the league in Spo. And I think that's the matchup we get. And I think they would absolutely push the Celtics to at least for sure 6 competitive games, maybe a 7th game. And I mean, the Celtics are a juggernaut. And my follow-up question to that is, would you take Celtics Nuggets right now in the finals, or would you take the field, it being any other sort of matchup?
Celtics Nuggets. I already put a bet on Nuggets beating Celtics in the finals, but the halfway part of the season.
But in general, you see nobody beating either team.
No.
I think I'm with you.
Listen, so here's the thing. The Heat have the best chance. Oh my God. Oh my Lord. Sorry, D'Angelo Russell just went in and out, step back over because he's hot right now. He's hotter than fish grease. They're up 103-79 on the Thunder. Sorry.
Wow.
D'Angelo, you're going to see this on
Maybe
Twitter.
the Lakers are winning the ring.
D'Angelo's was going nuts. That was crazy. But anyways, to get back to the actual point, the Bucks should be the number one threat to the Celtics. The Heat, in my opinion, are the number one threat. The problem with the Heat had been that they did last year, after Jimmy, what were you getting scoring wise? It was never defensively. You were not worried about them. It was what you're getting scoring wise.
And then it magically becomes fucking Caleb Martin.
And it would be Caleb Martin one game. It would be Max Strus the next game. It would be Gabe Vincent the next game. It would be Bam Adebayo the next game. This year, you've gotten a more consistent Bam. He's playing well. You've got Tyler Hero. Obviously, I hope he can stay healthy, but you've got Tyler Hero. You have Terry Rozier. So you have more. You have now 3 people who can legitimately go get a bucket on their own. And you want to count 4 if you count Bam. Like, Bam's been able to do that more and more this season. He's been playing well. And then you got Jaime, who knows what he's doing. I know he's a rookie, but he plays like a 3 to 4 year veteran. Like, he plays like he's been in the league before because he's calm. He plays at his own pace. You've got Duncan Robinson, who's played in big games. Caleb Martin, who's played in big games. You have Kevin Love, who's played in big games. Jovic is starting to actually play more. And, like, they just have a lot there where they're influxing some of their newish pieces, obviously, in Jaime and Jovic, in with obviously what they've had before. They just went to the finals. They've perpetually been at least in the Eastern Conference Finals, other than the one year they lost to Milwaukee. But so they to me are the biggest threat to Boston. Would I favor Boston in a series? Absolutely. Would the Celtics probably win? Probably, because Porzingus changes that entire team. But if there was a team to beat them, I think it might be Miami over Milwaukee. But Milwaukee's starting to play very good basketball. Milwaukee is starting to play better defensively. Giannis has been a problem all season. And then it really comes down to Lillard. Lillard hasn't found his stride with this roster yet. His actions, comfort stride. Like, he's still Lillard, so he's going to put up his numbers. But like, in games, it just doesn't feel as seamless as I thought it was going to start off. So he's still trying to find 100% his comfort there. Like, and obviously in Portland, he knew exactly what he was. He knew exactly what he had to be. Blah blah blah. But with Giannis, I don't know. Is it weird for him to be the second best player on a team? Like, I'm not sure if he's ever had to deal with that, other than maybe his rookie year with LaMarcus Aldridge, but even then he was still getting the keys to the franchise. Is it weird for him to be the second best player and have to defer? I don't know if that's weird for him, because he's probably never have. I mean, he went to Weber State, and then he was in high school, and then obviously he was in Portland all these years. So I don't know if that's weird for him. It could be. I mean, yeah,
I'm not necessarily worried about Lillard when it comes to the Bucks as much as I am Middleton. I don't think Middleton's been consistent. He's been in and out. I really hope we get a Bucks Heat series. I really hope we get a second round series of that. I would love to see that. I think that would be a 7-game series, and just like you, Keenan, I'd give the edge to the Heat.
I think they have more offensive firepower now, to where even if I'm favoring the Nuggets, absolutely, but I think they have a better chance of this year than they would last year.
If that offense was crisp in Milwaukee, I would think more of it. They're winning purely off talent right now. If they were a well-oiled machine and they look like how Boston looks on offense, I'd probably pick them over the Heat or consider it more. But the Heat, they're pretty plug and play, and they're more talented than last year. And like you said, they got more scoring options, and they're just the toughest team in general. There is not a team tougher than them in the East or the West, probably, other than Denver. Denver's the only team you could say matches them with toughness. Celtics, who have been the best team all year, will continue to be the best team, it looks like.
Yeah.
I mean, it almost feels like they don't get enough respect somehow. The only way I see them tripping up is if Porzingus, this is before the finals, is if Porzingus gets injured. If Porzingus gets injured, they are absolutely beatable. And we're looking at last year's version of this team.
Porzingus turns the Celtics from a contender in the
To a
East
favorite.
of an overwhelming favorite. And overall, just because the Nuggets are a team from a contender to a favorite. He absolutely does. The Celtics could win a championship to me this year without Jaylen Brown. I don't think they can without Porzingus. And that's tough to say. But without Jaylen Brown, it would take Jason Tatum to step up his play more. I understand Jaylen Brown's a very pivotal point to that team, but if you're
I don't think
giving
they could
me
win a ring without him, actually.
See,
it would be tough. It depends on what if Porzingis steps up to the level you're getting of Jaylen Brown.
I think you would need
yes.
I think you would need a different mindset, Jason Tatum, to do so, but I think they could.
That would be completely dependent on how Porzingis.
But I don't
two.
think they could win it without Porzingis, though. If I'm going to be quite honest with you, because we've seen this literal movie before, and I understand they have Drew Holiday, but like I don't think they would win a championship without Porzingis. I really don't.
No, I agree with you.
Obviously without Tatum, they're not doing anything. Like, duh. Without Drew Holiday, they could win a championship because of the fact that Derek White is such a big piece. I think Derek White's very important to them, but with Drew Holiday, they could manage to win without Derek White. I think they could probably do it without Jaylen Brown. It would be super tough, and you would need Porzingis to get into his Knicks bag, and then you would need Jason Tatum to take even another little step. But they're not winning without Porzingis. Like, they're just not doing it. I don't know if they get by the Heat without Porzingus. I'm going to be quite honest with you.
I think that's a weird way to put it.
They
like
could.
If you take Jaylen Brown off this team, because Jaylen's just as important to them as Porzingis. Porzingis just puts them completely over the top. Like, they would be favored over Denver, right? If they faced off right now, they would be favored over Denver in the finals, right?
That's tough just because Denver is the champs. I don't.
They're the champ, but the Celtics for sure are more talented and have just been the better regular season team. The Celtics would probably be favored.
Yeah, I think it's a 52-48 favor rather than like a
right. No, I agree. I completely agree. But
okay.
My point
we can be on the same page.
My point being, like, you take Jaylen Brown off that team, and I've been tough on Jaylen Brown. Like, if you would have took him off the Celtics this year, I'd have been completely fine with it. If they would have ended the Jaylen Jason experience. But he's playing very well. We just saw him. I mean, I don't know what Golden State was thinking yesterday of just letting Jaylen Brown shoot. He's a good catch and shoot shooter. And
the thing about him is he's a rhythm shooter. So like when you let him get a couple, then he's gonna get hot. Like, I understand the mindset of like you let him maybe take a couple and like try to play the percentages, I guess, but he's a rhythm shooter. Like if you're gonna let him roll, then that's when he's gonna be at his best. Like you know this watching more than anybody. Jaylen Brown's very liable to give you a quarter, like just a random 15-point quarter.
Sure, yeah.
He just gets hot, and then he might not even do anything for the remainder of the game, but like just get you a 15-point quarter. I mean, he gave you a 19-point first quarter, so like he can just get you that at any point.
Absolutely. I could see the Celtics. They're talented enough to where if they lost Porzingis before the finals, they could still get to the finals without him. They just can't win it without him, especially if it's Denver.
Yeah.
Right. We are doing way too many hypotheticals, but I mean, look, I don't even I don't want to say that I don't. I questioned the Celtics' toughness last year, and I definitely would have had them losing to the Nuggets last year. I still think they could make it 6 games with the Nuggets. So when you say if they lose Porzingis at this point with the level of defense they play, the level of player that Tatum is, the level of player that Brown is, I don't even love Jaylen Brown. Not a huge fan of Jaylen Brown. And Joe Maz, let me give him credit because I shit on him a lot. They're 48-12 right now. Like, I don't trust him in big moments necessarily. But yeah, I could trust him to get to a game 6 without that. So, I think this team absolutely could beat the Nuggets. I wouldn't favor them. I don't even think it's likely, but it's not entirely likely, obviously, without Porzingis. But they would be a good enough team to compete without Porzingis with the Nuggets now, and it would not be a 5-game gentleman's sweep. It wouldn't be a sweep. They still got real firepower on offense and defense. They would have more than enough. But Jokic is so great, you would still, of course, favor them. So I'm with you there, but I'm just saying, shocked. I can't go all the way to shocked when, they would have been in this position anyway without Porzingis. He's the icing on the cake.
The last thing I'll say on this, I know you're going to disagree, but that's fine. I would expect this series to be 5 before 7.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I don't agree with that. You're right. So you were right.
Because here's the thing, Jamal Murray can be as good as Tatum in a series. We've seen that plenty of times.
For sure.
And Jokic is a constant. So like it's like not even like Jokic is a constant.
Let me ask you this though. Then your number 3, you're going to depend on Porter Jr. Whereas the Celtics would still have Holiday, Derek White.
And then you have a team that's won a championship. So I trust Aaron Gordon. I trust Michael Porter Jr. He's been playing better this season. I trust Kentavious Caldwell-Pope. I trust Reggie Jackson. I
trust Porter Jr. too. We know he's going to have a 6-point game in April. That's happening in the playoffs. Like that's what Porter Jr. does. Celtics are going to get that consistency from White and Holiday. Hypothetically, this has got to be the record for most hypotheticals we've ever argued on the podcast. Because this is like 2 hours deep of hypotheticals.
But they could. I mean, Derek White could not shoot well for a game, or we've seen Drew Holiday in a playoff series not shoot well for a game.
He could, but Porter Jr. is the more talented player for sure, but they're the more consistent players. You're the more consistent.
Yeah, no, they're the more consistent players for sure. But I'm just saying when you have Jokic and Murray like here, and then Jaylen Brown and Tatum here in this hypothetical, if Jamal,
Jokic for sure.
Well, no, I'm saying them together. Like I'm just saying, you would need Tatum to play on the same level as Jokic, and then you would need Jaylen Brown to play on the same level as Jamal Murray. You would absolutely need Jaylen Brown to match Jamal Murray, and that is a very tough thing to do.
Here's the thing, and here's the case with the Celtics, and here's why I continue to disagree with them. The Celtics are by far the deepest team in the league, to where you don't need Tatum to match Jokic. You needed to get him. You need to be a level below, and you need everything else from Jaylen and everyone that falls underneath that. If the Celtics take last year's Celtics with Marcus Smart, right, and not Drew Holiday, and you don't have, I mean, you still have Robert Williams, but you don't have as many shooters and scorers, and you're relying more on Grant Williams. Then it's a different conversation.
Okay. I'm going to agree to disagree because I understand what you're saying. I understand what you're saying, but to me, depth doesn't matter as much in the finals when you're going really 7 to 8 deep, and I trust Denver's.
It does when your 8's better, though. Their 8's more talented. That's the thing. And they have true defensive versatility.
But Jokic is better than Tatum.
I'm not arguing with you there.
Like a little bit. I mean by a lot of it. And Jamal Murray is better than Jaylen Brown by.
But here's the thing you said, though, Keenan. Here's the thing you said. You said you need 8. You don't get much production out of the players outside of Murray and Jokic. They're doing the majority of the offensive production. So if Porter Jr. has an 8-point game, then you're relying on Aaron Gordon versus, like I said, Holiday, White.
They're built the same way, where the fact that you need to trust the Celtics go as the 3-point shot goes.
And the Celtics have the better supporting cast.
Yeah, they do have the better support. And you know what is needed, though?
Well, that's where the argument would come in, though. That's what I'm saying.
If Michael Porter Jr. didn't have it, Jokic would just say, "I've got it." And then say if Caldwell Pope didn't have it, Jamal Murray would just say, "I got it." So I'm not concerned about. So like that's what I'm saying. They're just so great.
But that type of game also suits the Celtics. If you're going, okay, we're going to go with 2 scorers, they've got more to combat that when it comes to the last 4 minutes with Holiday, White, Horford, Jaylen, and Jason. You're still getting a great shot out of that 5 and getting more options.
I'm trusting Jamal Murray and Jokic more than anybody more than the Celtics. That's all you need the last 4. No,
but you're that's right. What I'm saying. But you can't say depth doesn't matter when you would favor that 5 in crunch time. If, like you're saying, Porter Jr. doesn't have it, then you're going 2 on 5. You almost got to favor the Celtics. You have
I trust Kentavious Caldwell Pope to make an open shot. I would still say trust Michael Porter Jr. to make an open shot. That's the thing. I don't have the faith in them to make an open shot. I've watched them all year long play defense late in games, and their defense becomes top 5 late in games. Offensively,
I agree with you. I agree with you.
So then what are we arguing?
No, I agree with it. No, I agree with everything. I agree with everything you're saying, but you can't say the depth wouldn't matter when in just this hypothetical situation, that's where you'd favor the Celtics. Their edge is their depth. That's where it would matter. Then you're coaching differently without Porzingus.
But
so when you're coaching that
to
team,
me,
that's where it does matter in that case. And yes, Jokic would still go off and Murray would still go off, and it would still take every bit of 7 games. But the Celtics would have an edge, at least in the depth department, where that would matter. Players matter. Holiday's a championship player.
Yeah,
That's
no,
3 players
the
who've been there,
Celtics
too.
are
They can
the
combat it.
Celtics are the best case to beat the Nuggets, but I just don't see anybody beating them. They're just too good, and Jokic is too good.
All right,
I guess
but
that's where. And
you
they got
were kind of making it gentleman's sweepish, and I'm saying the Celtics,
with that.
who I don't think are the toughest team, and I love the tougher Celtics teams. They would still. I'm not going to sit here and say they wouldn't have a chance still, even without him. I'm agreeing with you that I'd favor Jokic and the Nuggets. I'm taking them over the Celtics even today. If that was the matchup, I'd still take the Nuggets, even with all the Celtics depth. But would I be shocked without Porzingus? Would I be absolutely shocked? I can't say I'd be shocked. That I can't say.
Okay, so
That's what I'm arguing.
but I'll end the statement with the Celtics today. I think would lose in 6 to the Nuggets. If they took it 7 and they lost, wouldn't shock me.
That'd be a 7 game.
That'd be a 7 game. I think it's 6, and if it goes 7, it's not a shocker. The Celtics are a very good team. If the Celtics didn't have either Jaylen Brown or Kristaps Porzingis, it is a 5-game series, and if it went to 6, that is off the heart of the Celtics. They'd
get to 6. They'd absolutely get to 6.
I think it's 6 with an entire healthy Celtics team. I think it's 5.
They're a much better team than the 2022 Finals team. You got to put that into account too, even without Porzingis.
Yeah, they're better than that Heat team for sure. But now you have a team that's been there, done that, and it's been there. And
No. I'm saying better than the team that made it to the Finals.
No,
Celtics
I understand
are better
that.
than the team that faced the Warriors, even without Porzingis.
Yeah. But I mean, then you have the Nuggets who are better than that Warriors team. So like, if they're here
for sure, but I'm
they're
saying
going up. So like, it's kind of.
I'm saying you're at a game 6 base level where you can get to a game 7, and especially when you look at their historical stats, they're killing it without Porzingis this year. Porzingis just puts them way over the top. I'm just trying to figure out your argument sometimes.
Here's the argument. These games would be close, correct? They're not blowing out.
Yeah.
These games would be close. Sure. Then I'm taking Jokic and Murray over anybody. That's the argument. There's no other argument. I don't really care if it's a 2-man game, 3-man.
But here's the thing.
If Michael Porter Jr.
No one's disagreeing that. No, but
hold on for a second. No
one's disagreeing that.
Okay, so my point is, if Michael Porter Jr. is playing defense, if Contavious Caldwell-Pope is playing defense, and Aaron Gordon is playing in defense,
which they will,
then why would I care about them offensively late in game? I don't. They don't need to do. I don't care what the Celtics do. I really don't. It doesn't matter. Jokic is going to get a great shot on every possession.
I know this. But that wasn't the argument, though. That wasn't the argument. No one was arguing if the Celtics are going to win. All I was saying was, even without Porzingus, this team is still nasty enough defensively and offensively, like just talent and coaching-wise. They've been consistent with it. Yeah, they lost Game 7 last year, but by and large, they're going to meet expectations. And they've done nothing but usually, especially Tatum, someone who scored 50 in a Game 7, he's done nothing but get better in the postseason. I'm saying it's a little disrespectful to say
in the past, but I don't think it's disrespectful to say
played well in the finals.
I don't.
I think it's disrespectful to say it'd be a 5-game series. That's all I'm saying. And I'm saying their stats.
One of their 3 best players. It's disrespectful to say that it wouldn't be that'd be a 5-game series and maybe 6. I'm not saying it's with the full Celtics roster. Not with a full Celtics roster, of course. Not with a full Celtics roster.
I'm saying even without Porzingus, though, their stats are still. They still would be the best team in the East.
Then why wouldn't you favor them in a series? Why wouldn't you pick them in a series against Denver with a full roster? If they can get to hold on.
Because I trust.
No, hold on.
No, you asked me a question.
No, I'm going to say something real quick. Right. If you say with Jaylen Brown, it's 6 with Jaylen without Porzingis, and Porzingis really takes them that much over the top, wouldn't that be 2 games? Wouldn't that be the flip of the series?
No, I'm saying for sure it's a Game 7, and then it'd be a coin flip after that. Everyone knows Game 7's a coin flip.
And you would take the Nuggets in a coin flip game at this point? So you think the Nuggets are the better team?
gun to my head, sure. Yeah, I've said that multiple times here. The argument isn't. Yeah, I'm taking the Nuggets.
I don't know what
I'm
we're
saying,
even talking about then at this point. I'm just very confused at this point, where I'm not questioning the Denver defense, and without Porter Jr. shooting well, and we're not questioning the Denver offense. I don't know
You're saying Denver just locks the Celtics up?
No, I don't think they locked the Celtics up, but late game has always been a question for the Celtics, as it's been with you for this entire Celtics tenure. Including
this is again what I'm saying.
Playoffs.
I'm not arguing a win here. I'm arguing.
So
could they get it done in a game 6? Yeah, even still with all those problems, that team's still talented enough to be in that situation. But I get what you're saying.
Okay,
but it sounded slightly disrespectful the way you were putting it.
I wasn't putting it in. I've been saying the same thing. They're with a full roster. I have them going 6. If they went 7, it doesn't shock me at all. And even if they won the series, it doesn't shock me. It doesn't shock me. I just have it going. I would have it going 6. Insane. It's not a guarantee that everything has to go 7. They would win they could win one game. They could win one game in Denver. If they went 7, they went 7. They went 6. They went go 6. Like it is what it is.
If you beat that fully healthy Celtics team at 6, the Nuggets, then we really do got to talk about them being like an all-time great team. Because again, yeah, I would have the Nuggets winning, but I think the Celtics would, in the same way in a great fight, like that other boxer brings the best out of you. I think you would have to have the absolute best of Jokic to beat that Celtics team. That's how talented they are, 1 through 12.
So
I don't.
Okay,
that's all I'm saying.
Okay. We're ending it here. All I'm hearing is Kyle just said a game 7 in Boston would be won by Jokic. So all of my points make sense because all I was saying.
But I'm not arguing. I'm not arguing them winning at all. Anyway,
I
was never arguing that.
That's it. No, there's nothing else to argue.
Never arguing that.
We've said we just had a hypothetical argument about we agreeing that Denver is going to win the entire thing.
I led with that. I led with that.
So did I. I have not.
So we agree on the end point, but we don't agree on the semantics. That's my point.
Yeah,
I think this team would bring the best out of Denver.
Oh, they would, and I think 6 game series you can bring the best out of an opponent. But you bring the best. You bring
the best out of someone and you push it to 7. That's when you get the absolute best out of somebody. But I get what you're saying too.
You can get the best out of someone playing 6. But we've got the best out of Jordan. He never played a game 7. There we go. Warner Brothas Podcast.
We did. We got
the best.
We would have got
Warner Brothas.
You would have got the best MJ in a game 7.
We're going.
You would have got the best MJ in a game 7.
We're going on. We've got. I watched him put up 55 points in a finals game.
That's
Warner Brothas Podcast. I watched him. We watched his last game. His last game. He had 48 and made the game winner over Byron Russell.
We'll continue this argument.
Warner Brothas Podcast. I have seen the best of Michael Jordan. It's fine. I've seen clutch Michael Jordan. I've seen him make shots for the win or either win or go home shots. I've seen that. I've seen him make clutch shots to go win finals games. I've seen him play in game 7s before. He's played in a game 7 before, just not in the finals. But Warner Brothas Podcast, that was Kyle. This was Keenan. I don't know how much of this conversation we're keeping because this is a long podcast because of this specific hypothetical, but you will see this end. Warner Brothas Podcast, we are out.
Like a man.